Chapter 723. Qin Xianqian and Ji Xiao left. Wan Macho also left. The points exchange in Yinling Royal Mansion could be done at any time, not once a year. According to Wan Macho, he would go ahead and settle down in the wasteland. Most importantly, Wan Macho had reached the Star Lord level. Naturally, he couldn't stay here for long. No one knew how many sorcerers there were in Yinling Royal Mansion. They only knew that the hundreds of thousands of sorcerers were just the tip of the iceberg. No one knew why the sorcerers invaded Yinling Royal Mansion. But there was a rumor that if a warrior in Yinling Royal Mansion reached the Star Lord level and didn't leave, he would definitely offend the sorcerers. This place was like the sorcerer's backyard, and humans were just the prey in the backyard. If the strength of the prey exceeded the master's bottom line intolerance, it would be a terrible thing. Although the rumor had been circulating for a long time, it was better to believe it than not. Lin Feng entered the land of wood spirits to cultivate again. What was different from the last time was that there were two more people this time, Zhu Ling and Ji Xiao. Since they were fellow disciples and friends who had gone through thick and thin together, Lin Feng wouldn't be so stingy. After knowing that Lin Feng had such a good cultivation environment, Zhu Ling shamelessly wanted share of the benefits, and even Ji Xiao was shameless for once. However, it didn't matter. After all, the remaining wood spirit hearts were enough. Besides, I'm about to leave Yinling Royal Mansion, and I won't come here for a long time, Lin Feng thought softly. After absorbing enough wood spirit energy and even having a thriving giant tree in his wood spirit star disk, he didn't want to stay in this land with spirits anymore. If there was anything, it was just that he was worried about Xian, but he didn't know how she was doing now. The Red Sky Passage is still closed. If something happened after such a long time, it should have ended long ago. Clearly, this should be a great opportunity for Xian. Who knows, it might be even better than mine. Lin Feng smiled. On the one hand, he was worried about Xian, but on the other hand, he was happy for her. After all, he was well aware of the mysteries and powers of the wood spiritual land. Every single giant tree here possessed extraordinary powers that were far beyond his reach. To be able to receive the call of this mysterious power, it must be a kind of inheritance. I have to continue working hard too. There's no point in keeping the wood spirit heart. There are still 5 months before the opening of the Yinling Royal Residence. This time, use it up. Lin Feng smiled. Soon after, he stepped into the giant tree world. He had reached the end of his path to becoming a war god. He could become a Star Lord at any time. However, on the path of becoming a Celestial Spirit Master, there was still a step that he needed to cross, and it was the most difficult and time-consuming step. The number of stars increased from the 9th to the 10th. It was very difficult, although with the star ring, he could sense the power of the constellations on a deeper level, and his absorption and cultivation speed had increased. By focusing on cultivating and increasing his astral power, the life soul's astral power grew several times faster than the human soul's. However, it must be known that it took a total of 9,000 days for the human soul to increase from the 9th star to the 10th star. And that was because the life soul's astral power had already reached 50% of the 9th star. If he walked the entire path, in other words, it would take him 18,000 days. How shocking. And the life soul needed 10 times more time to increase from the 9th to the 10th star than the human soul. In other words, it would take him 180,000 days. That was terrifying. With the star ring, I can save almost half the time. The life soul is more efficient than the human soul, so it can save me half the time. And this. Lin Feng's eyes glowed as he held the astral staff. The astral staff treated everyone equally. Not only could it enhance the sensing ability of the human soul, but it could also enhance the sensing ability of a life soul, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Hiss hiss. Dense astral power poured into his body through the astral staff and was quickly absorbed. The red light kept gathering. Lin Feng looked serious and soon immersed himself in cultivation. With the help of the astral staff, all the problems were no longer a problem. The path that would have taken him 50,000 days was now only 10,000 days. In the world of the giant tree with a ratio of 1:300, one cycle would take him 3,000 days. 5 cycles of astral power was more than enough. Time flew. After the defeat of the wizard tribe, peace returned to the Yinling Mansion. No one expected that the Yinling Mansion and the Lian School would turn hostility into friendship, and the war completely stopped. Since the two giants had settled the matter, the other forces did not dare to make a move. One by one, they ceased all activities. The entire Yinling Manor was filled with joy and harmony, returning to tranquility. As if infected by the humans, the wizard tribe did not appear again. The Yinling Mansion returned to normal, and the name Lin Feng had replaced Wan Macho as the strongest person in the Yinling Mansion. Peace was there most of the time, but the fighting would not stop. Because this was the instinct of human nature, an unchanging law. Because the human heart was not enough. In the Chiyue Palace, the fighting was very fierce. Although Wan Macho had left, the Vice Palace Master Qianjun was an ambitious person and did not want to give up. Moreover, without Wan Macho, Qianjun acted without scruples, and the Chiyue Palace became even more chaotic. However, this had nothing to do with Lin Feng. In the world of the giant tree, Lin Feng, Zhu Ling, and Ji Xiu were cultivating wholeheartedly, ignoring the outside world. Like dominoes, Lin Feng's rise caused too many people to change. Qin Xianxian and Shui Linglong were like that, Bai Yi and Ji Xiao were like that, and so were Zhu Ling and Ji Xiu. Especially Ji Xiu, who did not come from a good background, had aspired to be above others since he was young, and in fact he had done it. The rare genius of the Lian School had killed one of the 3 powerhouses of the Yinling Mansion, Wan Pajuan, at the age of 20. It was enough to make him famous and respected. However, there was always a mountain higher than another. Lin Feng's sudden rise had completely surpassed him. There was a feeling of being better than you, and all the joys and sorrows were in his heart. However, Ji Xiu was not the kind of person who felt sorry for himself. The training he had undergone since he was young had made his temperament extremely firm. Failure and setbacks had turned into motivation for him to grow. In this aspect, even Zhu Ling could not compare to him. However, in terms of the heart to become stronger and the determination to persevere, Zhu Ling was not inferior at all. Just like that, the 3 of them cultivated and competed silently in the world of the giant tree. 3 new stars were rising slowly. In the 3rd month of the next year. At this time, there was less than a month before the opening of the Yinling Mansion. After 5 months of continuous cultivation and living like an ascetic monk, Lin Feng finally obtained the result he wanted. ZZZ. ZZZ. In the life spirit, a bright red light covered everything. It was an extremely huge ball of light, which was far more powerful than the star power ball in a human soul that had dozens of star weights. It was equivalent to the 11 star weights of the human soul, and it was completely saturated at this time. As the last drop of star power emerged, the huge red ball of light emitted an extremely bright light, and the halo expanded rapidly. The oval shape became bigger and bigger, and the 7 colors became more and more obvious. It was changing rapidly. The ball of light jumped lightly, and it felt as if it had come alive. It felt completely different from when it was at the 9th level, 8th level, 9th level, 10th level. Lin Feng was extremely shocked. His star ring had changed too much. As the oval shape became longer and longer, the layers transformed from 7 to 10, and the boundaries between the layers were abnormally clear. It was like a ruler. Originally, there was only the boundary between meters, but now, there was even the boundary between millimeters. It was extremely shocking. Master once said that the limit of the star ring's layers should be 7 levels, but there are actually 10 levels? And it's so fine. Lin Feng was astounded. His heart raced as he watched the star ring expand rapidly. Surprise and surprise came one after another. Halo. It was flickering with a faint halo. That was the faint halo that would appear at the periphery of a legendary martial artist's star ring, and it was as beautiful as a rainbow. It was a kind of recognition an affirmation of a martial artist talent. It was a supreme honor. My celestial spirit master talent is indeed far superior to my war god talent. The difference is too great. Lin Feng was incomparably amazed. Comparing the two, the difference was not just a little. The human soul star ring only had 2 levels of differentiation, and it was hazy and unclear. In the 3-grade star ring classification, it barely entered the 2nd grade, middle grade. In the ordinary talent column, its star constellation perception was ordinary. However, the Life Soul Star Ring had not only exceeded the high grade 7 levels, it had reached 10 levels of differentiation. Moreover, what a deep halo! What bright and beautiful colors! Lin Feng felt that it was inconceivable. At the edge of the oval star ring, he could clearly see the appearance of the halo. How could it be described as faint? It was abnormally bright and rich. It was like the bright light in front of him. It was too clear. Phew! He let out a long breath. Lin Feng felt his heart tremble. He was deeply shocked by his own talent as a celestial spiritual master. Such aptitude was unparalleled in the Yanling Prefecture. It was already an existence that surpassed the legends. But this is only Yanling Prefecture. In the land of the 9 provinces, there must be stronger talents. Lin Feng nodded, understanding in his heart. Perhaps his talent was indeed very good, but there was always a higher mountain, and he could not be arrogant and self-satisfied. Moreover, no matter how good his talent was, if he did not cultivate diligently, what was the use? And if his talent was slightly inferior, such as his God of War talent, but when cultivated to the extreme, he could still possess extremely powerful strength and tyrannical strength. It was like fetching water, but some people use bottles, some use bowls, and some use buckets. However, the stronger one's talent, the more difficult it was to cultivate with half the effort. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He saw the star ring expand to the extreme, and the intense halo flickered. In an instant, a strong thought arose in his heart, and his mind was instantly immersed in the star ring, as if he had entered a new world. Whoosh! A loud and clear cry sounded, and a huge phoenix instantly appeared. Lin Feng in one go. Second update. Third update 2200 hours. Chapter 724. 5 months passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng, Zhu Ling, and Ji Xiu came out of seclusion almost at the same time. Because a new round of Yanling Royal Mansion was about to open, they couldn't waste this once-a-year opportunity. Especially for Lin Feng, this was a critical time. Not only was it related to the blood inheritance of the ancient divine beast thunder centipede, but it was also related to the safety of his master, Ji Jin. He had to get the 9-star immortal fruit to cure his master. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to leave Yanling Royal Mansion and go to Shirluo County of the Suzuka continent. As a disciple, he had this responsibility. Second senior brother, you're almost at the peak of the Star Sea state? Lin Feng was surprised. Zhu Ling smiled. It's all thanks to your astral power spring water. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so fast. Zhu Ling looked at Ji Xiu with glittering eyes and smiled. Ji Xiu isn't bad either. He's just a little bit behind me. Ji Xiu looked back at the passage in the blue sky. This is indeed a rare place to cultivate. Looking at the two of them, Lin Feng smiled and said, I'll take you to the 5th level of Yanling Royal Mansion. You'll definitely reach the Star Lord level in 10,000 days. Zhu Ling and Ji Xiu's eyes lit up. Indeed, 10,000 days was enough for them to break through with their own strength. Even if they formed a team, they weren't confident that they could break through the 5th level of the stairway to heaven. However, Lin Feng was completely different. With Lin Feng's strength, he could easily defeat the guardian of the 5th level of the stairway to heaven by himself. It was effortless. He could even defeat a Star-Lord wizard, a human warrior at the peak of the Star Sea state. For Lin Feng, he could end the battle with one move. For Zhu Ling and Ji Xiu, they already owed Lin Feng a lot. It didn't matter if they owed him one more time. At least this time, they would reach the Star-Lord level. It was too tempting. Then I won't be polite, Zhu Ling said and laughed. Thanks, Lin Feng. Ji Xiao smiled and nodded. Both of them understood that the current Lin Feng was no longer on the same level as them. Perhaps they were still chasing after Lin Feng's footsteps, but it was a goal, not a competition. It's nothing. Lin Feng chuckled. It's fate that we're together. After this trip to Yinling Royal Residence, I don't know if we'll have the chance to meet again. A trace of loneliness appeared in Lin Feng's eyes. He also felt helpless, but he had his own pursuits. It was impossible for him to stop. All of a sudden, Lin Feng smiled and said, "Then, let's part here. See you in the Yinling Imperial Residence." All right. Zhu Ling and Ji Xiao nodded. Human soul, star weight 10 layers, star control, strength 10 grades. Life spirit, star weight 10 levels, star control, power 10 grades. Lin Feng had reached the third stage of the peak star sea state in both his war god strength and his celestial spirit master strength. He was one step away from becoming a cosmic lord. Just like Juan Macho the other day, she was only holding herself back from becoming a star lord. He only needed to focus on the breakthrough, and the star lord state would be within reach. However, it wasn't the time yet. Breaking through to the star lord state meant leaving Yinling Royal Residence like Juan Macho. Otherwise, the Star-Lord sorcerer race would be attracted. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of that, but Yinling Royal Residence couldn't bear the danger. If there was another battle, would it be able to withstand it? It was unknown. There were some things that were best avoided. Swish! Lin Feng's eyes glittered as he galloped. There was still some time before the Yinling Royal Residence opened. He had some things to do that he had to complete. Xianglua City, Pegasus Gang's territory. There was a luxurious and resplendent skyscraper that flickered with sparkling and resplendent golden light. It was extremely luxurious. On the top of the building, a white Pegasus statue roared to the sky. It was the top building in Xianglua City, the Pegasus building. Trash. All of you are useless trash. What are you doing? F*CK. Do you have any brains? F*CK. I'm so pissed. In the hall, angry roars sounded like thunder. Sitting in the leader's seat, Ma Kuang's eyes widened like lanterns as he cursed with a ferocious expression. The Pegasus Gang's upper echelons all lowered their heads like obedient little wives. They didn't dare to talk back when they were scolded and didn't dare to say a single word of disobedience. Since the first leader, Ma Ba, and the second leader, Ma Xiong, died, the third leader, Ma Kuang, was the leader. His words carried weight in the Pegasus Gang, and no one dared to disobey him. However, he had a bad temper and would get angry every few days. Everyone could only accept it. At this moment, dang, 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 the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard as a disciple of the Pegasus Gang rushed over in a panic. Reporting to the leader, the Pegasus Gang disciple was about to kneel when Ma Kuang glared at him and roared, "What are you reporting for? Are you F*King blind? Can't you see that I'm teaching the little one a lesson? I'll let you in." The Pegasus Gang disciple's face turned green as he knelt and kowtowed in fear. "What are you kowtowing for? I'm not dead yet." Ma Kuang roared. He let out a deep breath and narrowed his eyes. Spit it out. "What's the matter?" He seemed to be thirsty as he picked up a cup of tea from the table and prepared to drink it. The Pegasus Gang disciple hurriedly said, "It's like this. Leader, there's someone called Linwen outside who wants to see you." Linwen? The Pegasus Gang's higher-ups frowned, as they had never heard of this name before. Pooh! Ma Kuang spat out a mouthful of tea. His expression changed quickly as if he was flipping through a book. Ma Kuang abruptly stood up. The corners of his mouth seemed to twitch as he smiled unnaturally. "Quick, where is he? Quickly lead the way." Then, he took 2 steps forward with a silly smile on his face. He didn't even know that there were tea leaves on his lips. Xiao. Ma Kuang quickly left. The Pegasus Gang members were left staring at each other in dismay. Who was this Linwen? It was Lin Feng. When he met Ma Kuang, he used a fake name. In fact, the name Lin Feng used in Green Smoke City was Linwen. Senior. I've been waiting for you for so long. Ma Kuang bowed with a shy expression. He didn't look as fierce as before. If the other Pegasus Gang disciples saw him, they would be shocked. This was actually their irascible first master. How's the thing I asked you to do? Lin Feng took a sip of tea and asked calmly. Since Senior asked, I'll do my best. Ma Kuang's eyes glowed as he said flatteringly. Ever since I took over the Pegasus gang, Lord Qian has asked me to do things for him several times. However, he's a cautious person and doesn't leave much evidence behind. He only left behind a seal the first time to convince the thousands of people in Goose Feather Gang of my identity. That's enough. Lin Feng smiled calmly. He didn't expect to leave behind any letters. The seal was enough. Here it is, Senior. Ma Kuang respectfully handed over a golden box with both hands. Lin Feng took it and opened it slowly. His eyes lit up. He had indeed seen a seal before. Closing the box. Lin Feng nodded with satisfaction and stood up. Senior, you're leaving? Why don't you stay a little longer so that Junior can play host? Ma Kuang asked. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he stared at this fence-sitter who was willing to betray his own brother for his own benefits. Although there was a murderous intent in his heart, he did not attack. Take care of yourself in the future. Lin Feng left these words behind in an indifferent manner before leaving like the wind. Maybe he deserved to die, but he did work for him, after all. Killing him would make him less reasonable. After all, he had done so many bad things, the heavens would punish him. Moreover, such vile people could be found everywhere. How could he kill them all? Chiyue Palace, Main Hall. Currently, Chiyue Palace was divided into 3 factions. The Elder Hall's faction, Lord Qian's faction, and the neutral faction. Fighting openly and covertly, the huge Chiyue Palace was now torn apart. Not to mention contending with the thousands of tribes and fierce Yen School. Yinling Prefecture's position as the 3rd faction was almost lost. It was in danger. The top 10 forces in the Yinling Prefecture had expanded their strength greatly during the crisis in the Yinling Prefecture. Especially the 4th faction, Tianxiong sect, which occupied 6 cities. Its strength had increased by more than half. It was a huge threat to Chiyue Palace. I lead the war, Lord Qian said calmly. His gentle appearance gave people the feeling of a spring breeze, but his voice was cold and sonorous. I lead the war. Ru Meng's eyes sparkled. Standing in front of the elders, she had the heroic bearing of a woman who wasn't inferior to men. Lord Qian's mouth twitched. Third Miss, are you afraid? Don't worry, I will personally lead the war. We will definitely win and spread the name of Chiyue Palace. Tianxiong sect won't dare to be presumptuous again. After saying that, Lord Qian stood up and looked at everyone with his cold eyes. He patted his chest and said, I, Lord Qian, promise everyone here that if we don't win this war, I am willing to commit suicide to atone for my sins. Although Lord Qian's figure was handsome, he had the courage of a man. The neutral Chiyue Palace martial artists were all convinced. In an instant, there was a lot of discussion below, and they all agreed with Lord Qian's actions. Ru Meng pursed her cherry lips, and her beautiful eyes kept flashing. She wasn't stupid. She knew very well that this was a big opportunity for Lord Qian. If he led the army and defeated Tianxiong sect in this war, Lord Qian's reputation in Chiyue Palace would be unshakable. He would sit firmly in the first position. At that time, it would be logical for him to be promoted from Vice Palace Master to Palace Master. Right now, Yinling Prefecture is peaceful. Although the situation is calm, there are dark waves surging. Ru Meng's beautiful eyes flickered. It's better to be quiet than to move. The hunter will shoot the bird that sticks out. Tianxiong sect's high-profile actions will definitely attract the attention of Yinling Prefecture and fierce Yen School. They will not have a good ending. Third Miss, you are wrong. Lord Qian smiled with strong confidence. The reason why Yinling Prefecture and fierce Yen School are recuperating is because they suffered heavy losses after the war with the Sorcerer tribe. Now is the time for Chiyue Palace to rise. First, we will annex Tianxiong sect and then plot against Yinling Prefecture. It is the best time to reshuffle Yinling Prefecture. Third Miss, to achieve great things, you must not be soft-hearted. Lord Qian's voice was firm. His words were sonorous, and the crowd was excited. Not only were the neutral cultivators beaming with joy, but even some of the elders' courtyard's elders were also beaming with joy. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Whether it was eloquence or tactics, Ru Meng was indeed not Lord Qian's opponent. Her face flushed red. Ru Meng gritted her teeth, but her heart was burning with anxiety. Once Lord Qian was imprisoned, it would be more difficult than ascending to heaven to touch him. Lord Qian's eyes were bright, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. How could a young and inexperienced girl and a group of old fellows fight against him? But at this moment, I also want to fight. A casual and indifferent voice sounded in an instant. Third update, added today, old time 000. Chapter 725. Everyone was suddenly stunned. Looking back at the source of the voice, everyone, including Qianjun, was extremely surprised. The doors of the main hall were still tightly shut, but a black figure had entered at some point in time, like a ghost. Xin Ran stepped out from the middle of the crowd with a calm expression and a faint smile. He had a superior temperament, and his eyes were shining brightly. The warriors of Chiyue Palace frowned, but they did not recognize him. Everyone, including Qianjun, was unfamiliar with this black-robed young man, but his aura seemed to suppress everything. Not only did none of the cultivators dare to move, but even Qianjun felt intimidated by it. The pair of sharp eyes seemed to see through him completely. "Who are you? Why did you barge into Chiyue Palace?" Qianjun asked in a sharp voice. At this time, Ru Meng completely reacted, her beautiful eyes widening as she said in disbelief, "Lin Feng? Why are you here?" Lin Feng. It was like a sudden clap of thunder. Everyone took a deep breath, their faces aghast. This was the most famous name in Yinling Prefecture, the most widely discussed living legend, but there were very few people who had actually seen Lin Feng. Qianjun's heart suddenly thumped, and the way he looked at Lin Feng changed instantly. "Is it that Lin Feng? I don't know. He doesn't look like it. How can he be so young? Who said so? I heard that Lin Feng is a young warrior, but if it's really him, why did he come to Chiyue Palace?" The warriors of Chiyue Palace were all discussing, extremely curious. However, no one stopped Lin Feng, allowing him to pass through the crowd and slowly step to the front of the hall. This was where the upper echelons of Chiyue Palace were. "Long time no see, Ru Meng," Lin Feng greeted with a smile. Then he looked behind Ru Meng, and Lin Feng nodded gently, "Hello, elders." The elders stared at Lin Feng, still in a daze, and then looked at Ru Meng. Obviously, the two were old acquaintances, and their relationship seemed to be not bad. "Long time no see, hero of Yinling Prefecture." Ru Meng smiled sweetly. Seeing Lin Feng, she felt an inexplicable sense of security. It was as if as long as he was there, she didn't need to worry about anything. His originally hesitant and anxious mood instantly calmed down like a clear spring flowing through his body. Boom! The entire Chiyue Palace was in an uproar. Ru Meng's one sentence undoubtedly affirmed Lin Feng's identity. There was only one hero in Yinling Prefecture. That was the supreme existence who had single-handedly suppressed the army of the shaman tribe, the strongest person in Yinling Prefecture. Lin Feng. It was actually this young man in front of him. Wow, I've finally seen him in person. He's so young. Amazing. He already has such strength at such a young age. How terrifying will he be in the future? So my idol is like this. TSK. Breaking into the Chiyue Palace alone. How bold. But what is his relationship with the third miss? Clamorous voices rose and fell, and everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Feng. Indeed, the strongest person in Yinling Prefecture, the supreme existence who had defeated the shaman tribe. Who wouldn't be curious? As the back of his face could not be seen in the video, they could not see Lin Feng's true face. But now they saw him in person. Many martial artists were extremely excited, as if they had seen their idol. Only one person's face was ashen. Qianjun. Lin Feng definitely did not come at this time, simply to visit Ru Meng. One would not visit a temple for no reason. Qianjun was extremely nervous. Shock, fear, hesitation, all kinds of emotions mixed together. "I'm here on my master's orders to help an old ally," Lin Feng said with a smile. He had indeed come on orders. According to his master, this matter was just a piece of cake for him. In fact, even if it was just for Ru Ming, he was willing to make this trip. "This is Chiyua Palace's matter. Brother Lin Feng, this should have nothing to do with Fiercian sect, right?" Qianjun's eyes were deep as he suppressed the uneasiness in his heart. "That's wrong." Lin Feng smiled faintly and looked back at Ru Ming. "Fiercian sect and Chiyua Palace have always been allies during the time of the old palace master. Now, the Heavenly Hero Gang is ready to make trouble and try to bully Chiyua Palace. How can Fiercian's sect stand by and watch when our alliance is in trouble?" Ru Ming smiled and nodded. Although she did not know what Lin Feng wanted to do, she believed in him. Lin Feng would never harm her. "Oh," Qianjun's eyes lit up, and he smiled. "Brother Lin Feng just said that you are also in charge of the battle. Having an additional helper from Fiercian's sect would only bring benefits and no disadvantages." Qianjun was naturally happy to do so. Anyway, this would not affect his command of Chiyua Palace. But was there such a good thing? Yes. Lin Feng nodded and looked straight at Qianjun. He suddenly turned to look at Ru Ming and smiled. "However, Chiyua Palace must be led by third Miss Ru Ming." Qianjun's expression changed, and he said coldly, "This is an internal matter of Chiyua Palace. Fiercian sect has no right to interfere." Lin Feng's eyes turned cold, and his aura exploded, bringing with it a heavy pressure. "Who said we have no right?" In an instant, the entire hall of Chiyua Palace became tense, and everyone's expression changed. A golden box appeared in Lin Feng's hand, and he opened it with a bang. A seal floated in the air and shone. "Qianjun, you colluded with the Wild Feather Tribe and tried to annex Chiyua Palace. Do you think Fiercian's sect has the right to interfere?" His voice was sonorous. Lin Feng's eyes were cold, and his aura was pressing against Qianjun. He did not give in at all and took a step forward, bringing with him a strong aura. Lin Feng's murderous aura was revealed. Qianjun's expression turned ugly. Looking at the seal, Qianjun's face was ashen. He instantly understood everything. Lin Feng in front of him was as terrifying as a demon. His shocking aura completely suppressed him, like a mountain pressing down on his head, making him unable to move. "This is framing me." Qianjun's voice was sharp as he said sternly, "How can you convict me with just a seal? You're wrong. I'm not here to convict you." Lin Feng smiled coldly. His striding figure suddenly stopped, but he was less than 10 meters in front of Qianjun Clang. A cold light flashed, and the amethyst spear appeared. Strong energy surged, and Lin Feng's eyes were like thunder. "I'm here to kill you," Lin Feng said indifferently. His voice was not loud, but it caused everyone to be shocked. Alone, he broke into Chiyua Palace's territory and killed the deputy palace master of Chiyua Palace. How arrogant! But no one moved. Everyone was shocked by Lin Feng's aura. Qianjun's face was extremely pale. At this moment, he suddenly realized that even if he was in the main hall of Chiyua Palace and was surrounded by thousands of experts, there was only Lin Feng in front of him. Who could help him? No one, only himself. However, in the next moment, Qianjun's heart was suffocating. In front of him, the purple light flashed, and the terrifying power seemed to swallow everything. The aura was majestic, and it destroyed everything, including his consciousness. Boom! A violent explosion sounded. Qianjun instantly turned into nothingness and died without a burial place. At the last moment, he suddenly realized that no matter how powerful he was, it was useless. Strength was everything. Someone as strong as Qianjun, who was almost at the peak of the star sea level, couldn't even take half a move from Lin Feng. This was the difference. The naked difference. Everyone was stunned. Looking at the scene in front of them, they couldn't say a word. It was too shocking. Wah! The purple crystal spear flashed and was sheathed. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, as if he had just done something insignificant. Convict? Was there a need? If he wanted to kill him, then he would kill him. There was no need to reason. If it wasn't for Ru Meng, he wouldn't have to ask Ma Kuang for the seal. Perhaps this couldn't convict Qian Jun, but it was enough to make the neutral Chiyue Palace martial artists lean towards Ru Meng's side and help Ru Meng take over Chiyue Palace more smoothly. As for himself, what did it have to do with him what the martial artists of Chiyue Palace thought? Even if they wanted to kill him, did they have the ability? This was strength, the true power to do whatever he wanted. In the entire Yinling Manor, he could do whatever he wanted. He had nothing to worry about, because he was the strongest person in Yinling Prefecture. My mission is complete, Ru Meng. Lin Feng smiled. Looking at Ru Meng, who was still in a daze, he patted her shoulder gently. I'll leave this mess to you. I have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. See you again. After saying that, without waiting for Ru Meng to reply, he disappeared like a gust of wind. But he came without a trace and left without a trace, leaving the entire hall of Chiyue Palace martial artists with their mouths wide open, unable to close for a long time. Everyone was dumbfounded. Lin Feng left abruptly. There wasn't much time left. He went straight to Yinling Manor. I've completed the mission you gave me, Master. Lin Feng smiled, although it was different from the way his master had instructed, but at least he had completed the mission. Although it's not the best way, it should be the simplest and most effective way. Once and for all, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Lord Qian was dead. His subordinates were just a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals. It was difficult for them to make a difference. As long as Ru Meng wasn't stupid, the rest was just integration and pacification. For her, who had the support of the Elder Compound and was the third miss, it couldn't be easier. As for himself, he was just a passerby. So what if the Chiyue Palace martial artists hated him? After this trip to Yinling Manor, he would soon leave. He didn't know when he would return. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. His figure was like lightning as he sped up. Goodbye, Ru Meng, my friend. I hope you're well. The fate between him and Ru Meng had come to an end. It should be said that the fate between him and Yinling Manor had come to an end. Lin Feng's eyes were indifferent, but he didn't care too much. Since he had chosen this path, he had already expected it. The only thing he could do was to keep moving forward. Added chapters, 4th update. Chapter 726. The Yinling royal residence was bustling with noise and excitement. Countless geniuses from the Yinling residence had gathered here. Almost all the large and medium-sized forces were gathered here. Whispering to each other, everyone was filled with anticipation. This was the sacred place that opened once a year. Wow, my idol, Lin Feng, is far ahead in the 100-year and 10,000-year rankings. He is indeed the strongest in the Yinling residence. His points are over 20 million. Look, the second place is only 75 million. Don't make a fuss. You don't know that when the Fierce Yin School and the Yinling residence went to war last year, Lin Feng alone slaughtered 500 experts from the Yinling residence and dominated the sacred place. Really? Are you kidding me? In front of the rankings, everyone was discussing animatedly. The topic of discussion was inseparable from the two words Lin Feng. After Zhu Ling had spread the video of the battle, Ji Jin had also greatly promoted it. Now, Lin Feng was not only the living signboard of the Fierce Yin School, but also the idol of all the young martial artists in the Yinling Prefecture. The new generation surpassed the old. The era of Wan Macho was over, and so was the era of the Yinling residence. The Yinling residence would welcome the era of Lin Feng and the Fierce Yin School. In an instant, boom! The entire Yinling residence was in a hubbub. Qi Liang's cheers, mixed with excited screams, rose and fell one after another. Everyone's eyes were shining. They were overjoyed as they looked into the distance and saw their idol with their own eyes. Lin Feng was here. It caused a huge commotion. Ugh! Lin Feng was shocked by his own reaction. Feeling everyone's passionate and fiery gazes, he was a little uncomfortable. How did he become so famous? Feeling helpless, Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Hearing familiar shouts, he looked over and saw second senior brother, Ji Xiao, and the others. Lin Feng smiled faintly and strode away. Familiar faces appeared in front of him. Ji Qing, Ji Jing, Ji Xiao, Lei Ba, Ji Niu Jiao, Qian Xin. They were all companions who went through life and death with him last year. Hello everyone. I'm late. Lin Feng smiled. Looking at these fellow disciples who were like brothers, he felt a sense of warmth. Haha, our boss is here. Lei Ba laughed. You should call him Captain. How rude. Ji Qing reprimanded. Damn it. I also want to join the first team. Yellow Gull curled his lips and said gloomily. TSK, only 19 spots. Do you think it's that easy? Qin Huaihui pouted. However, this caused Lin Feng to be stunned and slightly puzzled. Was the first squad related to him? It's like this, Lin Feng. The third elder walked over with a smile and patted Lin Feng's shoulder. I heard that this is your last time entering the Yinling royal residence. Your master asked you to help lead a team. Do you mind? Then, third elder handed over an exclusive locator. The number 1 was clearly written on it, representing Team 1. So that was the case. Lin Feng suddenly understood. To be able to enter the first team, he must be the future pillar of Yinling Prefecture. Master has indeed given a lot of thought. Lin Feng smiled. He understood his master's intention. Anyway, to him, it was just a piece of cake. A team of 20 people, and he would encounter 3 stairway guardians in the stairway battle. It seemed much more difficult, but his master still underestimated him. Looking at the people around him, looking at their happy and excited eyes, then looking at their disappointed and gloomy expressions, Lin Feng took the locator and looked at Third Elder. He smiled and said, How about this, Third Elder? Since I have to lead the team, it doesn't matter if there are more people. Please help me expand Team 1. Really? Third Elder's eyes lit up, and he said happily. He and Ji Jin were afraid that Lin Feng would be too tired, so they kept the number of people at 20 after much consideration. However, the selection process was extremely tiring. Many elite warriors could not enter. Don't worry, Third Elder. Since Junior Brother has asked, there will naturally be no problem. Zhu Ling smiled and said, Then I'll pick. How many people? Third Elder raised his eyebrows and probed. 20 more? No, how about 10? You're joking, Third Elder. Zhu Ling smiled and said, Let's add 30 more to make a team of 50 people. Then he looked back at Lin Feng. Is that okay, Junior Brother? Lin Feng smiled and said, Let's make it 100 people. What? This time, however, everyone was stunned. Zhu Ling's eyes widened. 100 people? Junior Brother, can you handle it? Third Elder swallowed his saliva and said, Lin Feng, your master wants you to lead Team 1 to the 5th layer of heaven, I know. Lin Feng nodded. How could he not understand his master's meaning? 100 people, hiss. Third Elder took a deep breath and counted with his fingers. If you challenge the stairway battle, Lin Feng, you'll have to face 11 Peak Star Sea State Guardians. That's 11 existences equivalent to Wan Chou. Lin Feng smiled and said, Hurry up and pick, Third Elder. There's not much time left. Oh, okay. Seeing Lin Feng's confident expression, Third Elder did not dare to delay and quickly went to pick the people. At this moment, the people of Fierce Yin's sect heard this big news and instantly became excited. The originally disappointed and depressed expression instantly turned into a strong sense of hope. 100 people, compared to the original 20 people. The hope had increased by more than a few times. In an instant, there was joy and happiness. Looking at the excited faces of the people, Lin Feng smiled. Since he was going to lead a team, there was no harm in bringing more people. It would be his last contribution to the sect. In any case, there wasn't much of a difference between bringing 20 people and bringing 100 people. If he was willing, even if he brought all 450 people of Fierce Yin's sect, it would not matter. With his current strength, it was too easy to deal with Peak Star Sea State Guardians. However, the 5th layer of heaven was different from the 4th layer of heaven. It was much more dangerous. Moreover, he was only responsible for leading them. He could not always look after them like a nanny. Therefore, it was enough to choose 100 elites. It might not be a good thing to spoil things through excessive enthusiasm. Soon, under Third Elder's careful selection, a team of 100 warriors was formed. Such a huge team was not only unprecedented in Fierce Yin sect, but also in the entire Yinling mansion. The surrounding people pointed at them and whispered among themselves. Although they were puzzled and surprised, the leader was Lin Feng, so no one dared to question him. Lin Feng's strength was unfathomable. It was evident that he could defeat a Star Lord sorcerer race alone. No matter how strong a peak Star Sea State Guardian was, could he be stronger than a Star Lord sorcerer race? Just as the crowd was discussing, whoosh, light shone, boom, rumble. A low sound was heard, shaking people's hearts. Everyone stopped talking and looked at the majestic door with bright eyes. At this moment, it was slowly opening. A bright white light appeared from the gap of the door, shining brighter and brighter. Everyone's eyes lit up. Yinling Mansion, open. Let's go. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He stepped forward with steady steps, revealing a faint sense of confidence. This time was completely different from the previous time. In the Stairway to Heaven battle, a team of 1 to 3 people would encounter a Stairway Guardian. A team of 4 to 10 people would encounter 2 Stairway Guardians. A team of 11 to 20 people would encounter 3 Stairway Guardians. After 20 people, every additional 10 people would increase the number of Stairway Guardians by 1. Now, the first team had a total of 100 people. In other words, the number of Stairway Guardians encountered in each heaven was 11. It was a shocking number. If it was a group battle, it would make sense for 100 people to deal with 11 Stairway Guardians. However, Lin Feng was alone. In the first heaven and second heaven, Lin Feng did not make a move. The Stairway Guardians with such strength were beaten to death by the people from Fierce Yin sect. They could not fight back at all. In the third heaven, Lin Feng still did not make a move. With Zhu Ling and Ji Xiao, these 2 martial artists who were close to the peak of the Star Sea level, leading the elites to battle. Although they encountered some small obstacles, they still passed the trial without much fuss. They defeated the 11 Heaven Stairway Guardians and entered the 4th layer of heaven. And this time, Lin Feng was finally going to make a move. The Stairway Guardians of the 4th heaven were 11 peak Star Sea States. Defeating them would allow them to enter the 5th heaven. What a terrifying aura. Is this the power of a peak Star Sea State? We will be killed. Behind the stairway line, a faint layer of light separated the battlefield. As long as one did not cross the lightning pool, there would be no danger. The Stairway Guardians would not attack the warriors behind the stairway line. However, the aura of the 11 Stairway Guardians, 11 peak Star Sea States, was overwhelming. It was intimidating and threatening. Among the crowd, even Zhu Ling and Ji Xiao, who were close to the peak Star Sea State, felt suffocated and pressured. Their bodies trembled and their breathing quickened. But there was one person who did not seem to care. Slowly stepping into the pool of thunder, Lin Feng's expression was calm. It was as if he was doing something insignificant. Pah! He crossed the stairway line. Pung! Lin Feng's eyes were burning with astral power. A faint battle intent was emitted, flashing with a touch of purple light. The purple crystal spear appeared in Lin Feng's hand. It was like a flood dragon coming out of the sea. A roar broke the silence. It was Lin Feng. Clank! The spear intent swept across. The 10th layer of Emperor Shun's astral power and flames drove the spear intent to burst forth. Lin Feng charged into the encirclement of the 11 Stairway Guardians alone like a shooting star. His expression did not change. The shocking aura completely covered the aura of the 11 peak Star Sea States. It was a domineering aura that looked down on everyone. The pressure of the Li Yin sect was completely released. It was as if all the calamity had fallen on the black figure in front of them. They did not have to bear it anymore. The man and the spear had become one. Lin Feng's strength was fully displayed. What a powerful spear technique realm. Ji Xiao felt a bitter taste in his mouth. He had always been proud of his sword technique realm. But now, after witnessing Lin Feng's spear skills with his own eyes, he realized that Lin Feng's spear skills had already surpassed his swordsmanship. Junior brother's strength is unfathomable. Zhu Ling nodded, his eyes shining. Although he was usually jovial and frivolous, his obsession with strength was very deep in his heart. Now that he was up close and personally witnessing Lin Feng's prowess, his heart trembled. At this moment, all the disciples of the Li Yin sect widened their eyes and held their breaths. They did not even dare to blink, fearing that they would miss this unforgettable battle. What they saw now was a legendary battle. Lin Feng fought against 11 Peak Star Sea State's Stairway Guardians alone. Almost in the blink of an eye, the Stairway Guardians disappeared one after another, turning into nothingness. Lin Feng, one man and one spear, seemed to have pierced through the sky. He was invincible. This was the strongest person in the Yanling sect. He was truly invincible. Part 1, Part 2, 2100 hours. Chapter 7:27. Lin Feng left. Under the respectful gazes of the people from Fierce Yan's sect, he left. It took less than 15 minutes to bring the 100 elites from Fierce Yan sect to the fifth heaven. While the elite warriors of the Wild Goose tribe, the Divergent Moon Palace, and the other Wild Goose Mansion were still in the third and fourth heavens, the warriors of the Wild Goose School had already entered the fifth heavens. They had stepped into the area that no one had entered for 10,000 years. It was a great breakthrough. It increased their cultivation time by 10,000 days. Moreover, as the fifth heaven had yet to open, the people from Fierce Yan's sect could enjoy a safe period of 1,111 days. During this period of time, they could do whatever they wanted in the fifth heaven and look for treasures. There would definitely be no danger. It was a real breakthrough. And all of this happened because of the existence of one person. Lin Feng, outside Wild Yanling sect. In front of the scoreboard, everyone stared with their eyes wide open. They were extremely shocked. After entering Wild Yanling sect, the scoreboard had more than 1 million points in just a moment. The strangest thing was, from the first place to the 100th place, everyone's points were exactly the same. 11110000. Moreover, these 100 martial artists were all martial artists from Fierce Yan's sect. Damn, it can't be. So crazy? Sigh, don't count on it this year. The top 100 of the scoreboard are all occupied by Fierce Yan's sect. That's right, there's no need to look. Fierce Yan's sect is too much. Everyone was shocked and helpless at the same time. Everyone could guess how the 1111000 points were obtained. The third elder was beaming with joy at this moment. He had been a little worried at the beginning, but now he was completely relieved. The first team of Fierce Yan's sect, a team of 100 people, all entered the fifth heaven. They completely monopolized the scoreboard. Look, Lin Feng is only ranked at the 100th place. Are you stupid? One look, and you can tell that Lin Feng brought people into the fifth heaven. It's true that when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. No wonder so many people are fighting to get into Fierce Yan's sect. Everyone was in a heated discussion, but most of them were envious. Previously, when Juan Macho was so strong, there were still many people who were unconvinced, slandered, and even disdained him. However, Lin Feng's strength was built on the foundation of defeating the Sorcerer tribe and saving Yanling Prefecture. If anyone dared to slander Lin Feng, not to mention the Fierce Yan sect, the entire Yanling Prefecture's martial artist saliva would drown that person. Lin Feng was the undisputed hero of Yanling Prefecture, the fifth heaven. Currently, the hero was in seclusion. The points of the other 99 Fierce Yan school disciples continued to rise, but Lin Feng's points remained stagnant. It was because Lin Feng was trying to become a Star Lord. Since they had entered the Yanling royal residence, they no longer had to worry. He had to break through to the Cosmic Lord level to receive the blood inheritance. That was the agreement he had made with the master of the Goose Feather Mansion, the ancient divine Beast Lei Shao. Besides, Lin Feng had been holding himself back from breaking through to the Star Lord level because he was tired. But then, finally, this shackle was broken. He felt as if he had just escaped from a cage. Rebirth. A total of 10 days and 10 nights. When the constellation power was absorbed to the maximum, and the star rings shone brightly. The balance of the energy in the human soul space was completely broken. Gathering too much constellation power was like adding sugar to a glass of water, completely changing the nature of the water. The moment has finally arrived. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His chest was heaving up and down, and his heart was filled with excitement. He had finally ushered in the opportunity to break through. He had been waiting for a long time. Inside the human soul, the original astral force ball was releasing power, trying to maintain the balance of the space. However, the constellation power was far more powerful than the sea of stars in the human soul. It was on a completely different level. Most importantly, the human soul had reached its limit. It was like a bottle full of water. No matter how much water it contained, it was still water in a bottle. If he wanted to contain more water, he had to break through and then rebuild. He had to make breakthroughs again and again, changing the bottle into a basin or even a bucket. That was the foundation of cultivation, constantly improving. The appearance of the constellation power was the signal of the Star Lord level. It was the key to opening the door of cultivation. No matter if it was the 9.5 or the 10th level, the infusion of the star power, the cleansing of the body, was actually a process. One was for the body to accept the constellation power, and the other was for the body to slowly adapt to the energy. Today, it was finally time to change. The human soul was about to break through. It was time for the war god to transform. It's starting. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. A shocking aura filled the air. His human soul had reached its final moment. Breakthrough. Wah! Light shone brightly. The human soul's drastic change, filled with all kinds of energy that kept leaking out, filling the entire human soul space. The dense metal origin power, mixed with the constellation power of the Ursa Major constellation, was like a house being torn down, turning the originally tidy house into a mess. All kinds of energy gathered, one after another. Bright little stars, like a galaxy or a sea of stars, were destroyed and swallowed. The constellation power kept entering the body, seeping into the human soul. The astral force ball and the star rings shone brightly. Especially the star rings, they were like a primer, like a fuse. Such powerful energy, such terrifying pressure. Lin Feng was shocked, his expression serious. His body lightly trembled, nervous and excited at the same time. Constantly absorbing, constantly changing. Finally, boom, it was like a flame exploding. A shocking power appeared, like the power of the heavens, unstoppable. The human soul seemed to be torn apart. A huge black hole seemed to appear in the space. The powerful suction force crushing everything. It was like the beginning of the world, when everything was in chaos. All the energy gathered at one point. The terrifying power made everything cease to exist. The galaxy, the sea of stars, the astral force ball, the star rings instantly collapsed and dissipated. The entire human soul space's energy was rapidly changing and undergoing a baptism. And under the powerful pressure of the black hole, it kept expanding and collapsing. Suddenly, boom, the starlight shone brightly. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide, feeling shocked. In front of him, the Ursa Major constellation's light was incomparably bright, that domineering appearance, high up, looking down on all. It seemed to trample everything under its feet. At this moment, he seemed to be standing at the foot of the giant bear, looking up at the terrifying power of the heavens, the bear's eyes flashing brilliantly, comparable to the heavens. The strong body seemed to be supporting the entire starry sky, the roar like thunder, echoing in his ears. This is a truly invincible power. Lin Feng's heart was filled with shock. Compared to the power that shook the starry sky, what was his meager power? It was like an insignificant grain of sand in a desert. So strong. Lin Feng felt his body tremble. It wasn't fear, but excitement, his desire to become stronger. This power was very intimate. The Star-Lord level is a qualitative upgrade. Using the power of the constellation, what is improved is also the power of the constellation. What is strengthened is also the power of the constellation. Everything is a new beginning. Lin Feng thought to himself, knowing the details. His master had mentioned this to him, and he had asked one macho that day. The Star-Lord level was different from the Star Sea level. It wasn't an advancement, but a transformation. At this moment, in the outside world, Lin Feng was surrounded by starlight, and his entire body was filled with intense red light. That was a vast amount of astral energy condensed from the pure astral energy of the constellations, causing Lin Feng's entire being to radiate a divine light. On his forehead, there seemed to be the silhouette of a gigantic bear, filled with a clear tyrannical aura, unexcelled in the world. His bones, cells, skin, everything was changing. It was a process of baptism. The 9.5 gears marrow cleansing was just the beginning, like a warm-up before a battle. Now it was the real beginning. Marrow cleansing from 9.5 gears to 10 gears. The constellation power and the body were completely adapted, enough to withstand the baptism. The process from the peak of the Star Sea level to the Star-Lord level had a success rate of more than 90%, which was quite stable for martial artists. The success rate depends on the strength of the body. Lin Feng smiled faintly. For himself, this 90% success rate was 99,999%, infinitely close to 100%. It was impossible to fail. The baptism was very easy. His body wasn't inferior to that of a newly ascended Star Lord level martial artist. This was the benefit of dual cultivation. Although the improvements seemed insignificant, they were accumulated over and over again. His body had long surpassed the peak of the Star Sea level. The success rate was much higher. After the baptism, his body would be stronger. Duo once said that the foundation of the body is the most important because it determines the extent of future growth. Although dual cultivation will take a long time, it's worth it. Lin Feng was well aware of the benefits of dual cultivation. This was what his master, Duo's master, Li Feng, had said in person. Time passed little by little. The baptism of the constellation power depended on the martial artist's body's endurance. Lin Feng undoubtedly maximized the effect of the baptism. In front of him, the Ursa Major constellation lit up again. The 7 main stars were unusually bright, and the brightest one was the light spot on the bear's head. The power of the main star was dazzling. Lin Feng felt his consciousness slowly seeping into the starry sky, and the 7 main stars kept enlarging in front of him. All of a sudden, a large starry sky appeared in front of him. Hundreds of millions of stars appeared in front of him. Big and small, bright and dark, countless stars appeared, decorating the boundless starry sky. But in an instant, his vision turned black. He felt like he was being squeezed by a terrifying force, and his body felt suffocated. Boom! His head felt like it was exploding. In an instant, Lin Feng seemed to open his eyes, and his heart raced. The starry sky around him was dim, and the bright stars could no longer be seen. The energy in the space was completely different from before, and he felt like he had come to another void. The energy here was not as strong as the starry sky just now. It felt like the beginning of the world. In the darkness, there was only one star. It was small, bright, and resplendent, like the light floating in the palm of one's hand. So close, so familiar. It's like a part of my body, and I can completely control it. Control, Star Master. And this familiar constellation power, Lin Feng smiled faintly, his heart filled with a strong sense of excitement. He had finally reached the Star Lord level. Second update, third update 000. Chapter 728. War God finally broke through. Star Lord level meant stepping into a new level. A brand new body, a brand new feeling. Closing his eyes, the feeling around him was completely different. If we say that StarCraft ranks exist in this world, then Star Lord level is the master of this world with supreme power. With a slight smile, Lin Feng clearly sensed his surroundings. His body seemed to have merged with the dense spirit energy, completely immersed. In particular, the metal origin energy was even denser. It was like little dancing fairies, making him feel incomparably close. Compared to the other 4 types of origin energy, it was much more intimate. Not only that, even the structure of the world, the flow of time, was like a ray of light in front of him. A very strange feeling. His soul walked the path of time. But different from the constellation power, he could only feel it but not control it. Phew! Letting out a long breath, Lin Feng opened his eyes. His vision was much clearer. The world seemed to be filled with life and vitality. When Lin Feng clenched his fist, he clearly felt that his body had improved tremendously. The corners of his lips curled up in satisfaction. After the baptism of the constellation power, my body is indeed different. My body's aptitude has greatly improved, and this is only the beginning. Lin Feng clenched his fists, feeling a strong sense of confidence. His body seemed to be filled with the constellation power of the Ursa major constellation, causing his body to completely transform. Most importantly, this was only the first baptism. Next, it's the Fate Soul's turn to evolve. My body will undergo the second baptism. Lin Feng smiled, excited. He really wanted to know, a brand new body after the baptism of the Phoenix constellation, how strong would it be? Hua! His eyes instantly changed. From the human soul to the Fate Soul control, Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the ground, immersing himself in it. His mind stabilized, the astral treasure staff flashed in his hand, once again absorbing the star power. It was the power of the Phoenix constellation. See, a bright red light appeared, instantly passing through the star ring and the astral treasure staff, entering his body. Lin Feng exhaled softly, but his brows furrowed. He felt an indescribable resistance. The power of the constellations seeped into his life spirit, but circulated within his body. It was merely a circulation. What's going on? Lin Feng was stunned. The constellation energy continued to gather in his body, accumulating more and more as it continued to sink. It was not absorbed by the cells, bones, blood, skin, and so on. It was as if he was being rejected. Why is this happening? I could have absorbed it earlier. Lin Feng pursed his lips, his brows tightly knitted together. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find an answer. Suddenly, whoosh! The Phoenix astrolabe in his body instantly lit up. Lin Feng was stunned. This time, he hadn't touched the Phoenix astrolabe at all. However, almost in an instant, the second golden fate astrolabe shone brightly. A strong golden aura covered his body, and his body changed rapidly. Lin Feng was completely dumbfounded. What happened? Why did the Thunder Slaughter armor appear on its own? His body was changing rapidly. Lin Feng was stunned. He was lost in the clouds and couldn't figure out what was going on. The Lightning Slaughter armor appeared once again. It was still shining brightly, and a strong golden aura bloomed from it. The 2 horns on its forehead flashed with intense lightning, and it looked like a bolt of lightning. Zzz, zzz, zzz. The lightning was ferocious, with a strong sense of oppression. Lin Feng's heart shook violently. The feeling was completely different from before. Sure enough, you didn't disappoint me, little guy. A calm voice sounded, with a hint of joy. Lin Feng's eyes widened. The voice was very familiar. This was Senior Thunderslaughter? Lin Feng remembered. This voice, wasn't it the owner of this place? The ancient divine beast Thunderslaughter? Come and find me. Don't waste time. Thunderslaughter's voice sounded again, but this time, Lin Feng's brows relaxed and he nodded. It seemed that Senior Thunderslaughter could solve the problem he was facing. Lin Feng glanced up and vaguely saw the lightning horn with thunder and lightning. His eyes suddenly brightened. Senior Thunderslaughter should be using this to communicate with him. And this energy, it had appeared when he fought with Juan Macho that day. No wonder I survived the magnetic explosion unscathed. I was only injured but not killed. I'm afraid it must be related to this horn and Senior Thunderslaughter. Deep in thought, Lin Feng immediately stood up. The sensor searched for the location of the Purple Star Realm. His body flashed and disappeared in an instant. The only way to find Senior Thunder Slaughter was to enter the Purple Star Realm again. It wasn't easy to find the Purple Star Realm, because the chances were quite small, even with the sensor. The entrance to the Purple Star Realm only appeared for a split second. Although the probability of the fifth heaven appearing was 10 times higher than the fourth heaven, it was still just an inconspicuous grain of sand in the desert. Ordinary people would not be able to see the Purple Star Realm at all. Waiting patiently. It was like waiting for dawn to appear in the darkness. One day, another day, 10 days, another 10 days. Until now, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. However, the Purple Star Realm would only appear once every 10 days, and there was no pattern to its appearance at all. Waiting for the rabbit to appear by itself required a certain amount of luck. He had waited for a full month. Now it was finally here. Boom. It was as if there was an explosion. The wind vortex flickered, and the light of the star power gathered around his body. Lin Feng increased his speed to the extreme and went all out. I can't miss it. There's still time. Gritting his teeth, Lin Feng's head tightened. If Zhu Ling and Ji Xiu saw it, their jaws would probably drop. It was just a light shadow. Swoosh! It broke through the air. In front of him, a purple light flashed, but it slowly closed like an eye. However, a black shadow with a red light penetrated in an instant. Whoosh! The purple light disappeared. As for Lin Feng, he was nowhere to be seen. He finally entered. Oh! Lin Feng looked around curiously. He had entered the Lightning Star Realm directly. He was quite familiar with this place. This time last year, in order to complete the test, he had entered 3 times and interacted with the ancient divine beast, Lightning Xiao. Now he was back again. It seems like I don't need to go through another test. Lin Feng smiled slightly, very satisfied. He was satisfied not because he didn't need to go through the test, but because he was now. Because after leaving the Lightning Star Realm, he would be at the place where he took the test that day. There were countless wizard tribes. At that time, he could completely pluck the 9-star immortal fruit and complete the mission of saving his master. It was very smooth. At this moment, whoosh! The space trembled, and Lin Feng's expression changed. The pressure around him appeared, and his vision suddenly blurred. The feeling was completely different. It was a chaotic space, and it was abnormally familiar. He had entered it before that day. Looking ahead, there was only one existence in front of him. It was shaped like a red leopard, and its iron hooves glowed with black light. Its body was densely covered with golden scales. Dense metal elemental energy gathered, and the white mane behind its neck and feet were dense. On its head, 2 spiral horns condensed with furious lightning. It was mighty and unparalleled. 6 tails flashed with intense energy, and it was arrogant and domineering. The ancient divine beast, Lightning Xiao. Greetings, Senior. Lin Feng bowed respectfully. Although the senior in front of him seemed to be heavily injured, his strength was still unfathomable. Even with his current strength as a Star Lord, he still felt like he was at the Star Ocean level. Senior Lightning Xiao was abnormally far away, unreachable. Since I've reached the Star Lord level, I should call you Master. Lightning Xiao's eyes flashed coldly, and lightning surrounded his body. Greetings, Master. Lin Feng knelt on one knee with a respectful expression. He had already mentally prepared himself. Since he had accepted the blood inheritance, it meant that he would inherit Lightning Xiao's legacy. Not only his inheritance, but also his everything, including the Lightning Star Realm. Compared to ordinary masters and disciples, their relationship was closer. After all, he would be Lightning Xiao's only successor. Since you entered the Lightning Star Realm and received the perfect reward, it's fate. From now on, you and I are master and disciple. Lightning Xiao said with a calm expression. There's no need for the etiquette of the mortal world, disciple. I don't need you to be my disciple. You just need to inherit my legacy, and that's enough. Last year, I briefly mentioned the blood inheritance to you, Lightning Xiao said. Lei Meng said slowly. No matter if it's an ancient divine beast or an ancient ferocious beast, The inheritance of blood can only be obtained once in a lifetime. It's equivalent to the continuation of the bloodline, and I never thought that I would pass it on to a human being. Lin Feng nodded slightly, but didn't say anything. Although his master's words were shocking, there were many things he didn't understand. But now wasn't the time to ask. After all, he had just become Lightning Zhao's disciple, and their relationship was still unfamiliar. Because of the limitations of a human body, the blood inheritance will take a long time. As for how long it will take, I can't give you a definite answer now, but you have to be mentally prepared. Because you're a human, so this process may not be that easy. Lightning Zhao's voice was calm, but his words were extremely shocking. Lin Feng heard it and immediately raised his head. Master, don't worry. I can take it. He had suffered a lot along the way, so how could he not be able to take a little pain? Thinking back to the day when his body absorbed the phoenix blood, it was also heart-wrenching, and he was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Thinking about it, his master's once-in-a-lifetime blood inheritance wouldn't be too bad. Pain, he wasn't afraid. Only by enduring the most bitter of hardships can one rise to the top. Lightning Zhao gave a rare smile. Is that so? Back to the topic. Lightning Zhao's expression was serious, and his eyes were burning. Although the process is long and painful, but as long as you can take it, the benefits you will get are incomparable. When the blood inheritance is over, you'll have the strength of a saint, just like the other divine beasts. What? Lin Feng's expression changed drastically. Lin Feng widened his eyes in shock and stared at Lightning Zhao. He was completely dumbfounded. Directly become a saint. Was this a joke? Third update. Chapter 729. The saint level was like a legend. It was already at the top of the pyramid of the Douling world. And now, the opportunity was right in front of him. Pu-pu-pu. Pu-pu-pu. Lin Feng jumped up. Looking at his master, Lin Feng's hair stood on end, completely shocked. Completing the blood inheritance, he could become a saint. What a temptation. Are you surprised? Lei Meng said slowly, then suddenly changed his tone. Indeed, for humans, the road to becoming a saint is bumpy and not easy. However, for divine beasts, becoming a saint just means growing up. It's just a starting point. Yes, master. Lin Feng nodded, but he knew. Divine beasts were born at Star Sea level, Star Lord level when they were young, Star Domain level when they grew up, and when they reached the peak of their prime. That was the saint level. They didn't need to cultivate. Indeed, for them, the saint level was just the beginning. The blood inheritance of the ancient divine beasts can only be obtained once in a lifetime. Lei Meng said slowly. Although you're just a human, after receiving the inheritance, your physique will far surpass that of divine beasts. You can directly ascend to the saint level. Thank you, master. Lin Feng lowered his head slightly. His heart flashed with curiosity and excitement. But more than that, he was looking forward to it. Originally, with his war god aptitude, the Star Lord level was his limit. But now, it was like a sealed river flowing into the ocean, vast and boundless. His future was bright. The blood inheritance will make my physique surpass that of divine beasts. Master is an ancient divine beast. He's indeed different from divine beasts. Lin Feng murmured to himself, deep in thought. Possessing the lightning star realm that included the Yanling royal residence, as well as heaven-defying strength, where did his master come from? Moreover, according to his master, he didn't need to fulfill his responsibilities as a disciple. He only needed to inherit his legacy. Why was that? He was getting more and more curious. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, but he suppressed the questions in his heart, because he knew that even if he asked now, his master wouldn't tell him. However, there was one thing he could ask. Master, your disciple has a question. I wonder if you can answer it. Lin Feng cupped his hands and said respectfully. Lei Meng's eyes sparkled. Do you want to ask about the Phoenix constellation's power being unable to complete the baptism? Lin Feng was moved. Master, please show me the way. The reason is very simple. Lei Meng said indifferently. Because your body is already fused with the Ursa major constellation star power, A mountain cannot accommodate 2 tigers, not to mention a small human body. How can it withstand the power of 2 constellations? If you force it, you will only explode and die. So that was how it was. Lin Feng suddenly understood. If his body was a room, then it was currently occupied by the Ursa major constellation, and the Phoenix constellation naturally could not enter. No wonder I've never heard of the existence of twin natal constellations. So that's how it is. Lin Feng secretly nodded inside his heart. It was one thing to understand, but it was another to accept. Unless, in order to cultivate the Ursa major constellation, he had to give up the Phoenix natal constellation. Wouldn't he have gained a sesame seed, but lost a watermelon? Sai, why don't I advance to the Phoenix constellation first and use the power of the Phoenix to baptize my body? Lin Feng felt that it was a pity. Regardless of aptitude or talent, his Phoenix constellation was far superior to the Ursa major constellation. But now that it was a fact, it would be difficult to change it. Was there really no other way? Lin Feng frowned and immediately raised his head. He looked straight at his master, who was standing in the void. Lightning flashed, filled with a mysterious and powerful aura. His heart trembled. Lin Feng cupped his hands and asked, "Master, do you have any ideas?" Lei Meng said indifferently, "Very simple, clone." Clone? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Not your secret doppelganger. I'm talking about your real doppelganger. Lei Meng's eyes flickered, as though he could see through Lin Feng's thoughts. No matter how exquisite the clone is, it has to rely on the main body. Maybe it has the control of the spirit, but without the physique, it is unable to cultivate and break through. Don't talk about becoming a starry sky martial artist. Even breaking through to the Star-Lord level is impossible. If you separate the main body, then the greatest limit of your clone's life is the peak of the Star-Lord level. Lin Feng's heart sped up when he heard Lei Meng's words. He had thought of this method before, but fortunately, he didn't use it. Thank you for the reminder, Master. Lin Feng's chest heaved, and cold sweat dripped from his forehead. He was lucky. If he had been careless just now, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Lin Feng was startled, and he was puzzled. I'm stupid. Where does the clone that Master mentioned come from? Lin Feng asked. A body with a soul that can withstand the power of your human soul and the inheritance of your blood, Lei Meng said faintly. Lin Feng frowned slightly. It wasn't difficult to find a body with a soul, but to withstand the power of his human soul, wouldn't it require a Star-Lord level body? Also, it had to be able to withstand the blood inheritance. What a joke. Did the Yinling family have such a body? Why not the power of the life soul, Master? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. My body has been strengthened several times, and it can completely withstand the power of the human soul and the blood inheritance. However, the power of the life soul is weak. A Star Sea level body is much easier to find than a Star-Lord level body. Lei Meng said casually, "Can you give up the Phoenix natal chart and the So Phoenix body?" The So Phoenix body? Lin Feng's eyes glittered. It was the second time he had heard this. Last time, it was the patriarch of the Swanee race, Kue Run, who mistook him for the ancient Phoenix race. However, it wasn't the time to care about that. No, Lin Feng shook his head. Losing the Phoenix natal chart meant that he would have to start all over again. He would rather lose the power of the Ursa major constellation than the Phoenix constellation. It was obvious which was more important. But where could he find a Star-Lord level body? And it had to be able to withstand the blood inheritance, right? Lin Feng opened his eyes and clenched his fists. The sorcerer race, it's the sorcerer race. Lin Feng was very excited and felt a strong sense of hope. In the Yinling Prefecture, there were many Star-Lord level sorcerers. Outside the Thunder Star realm, there were countless ancient sorcerers, and they were even stronger. Master, I'll go and find a Star-Lord level sorcerer race. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He was very confident in his current strength. A Star-Lord level sorcerer race was not a problem. Huh. Lei Meng laughed heartily and said slowly, "Why do you want to find a sorcerer race? No matter how strong their bodies are, they only have a soul. Although they have souls, they're a very special existence, completely different from the souls of humans. Ah, Lin Feng sneered, and a bitter expression appeared on his face. In his excitement, he had forgotten that Xian Er had mentioned it to him when he first entered the Douling world. It was basic knowledge. However, he could not think of any other way except for this. In the entire Yinling prefecture, the only other Star Lord was Wan Macho, and she had already left. Lin Feng frowned and fell in a deep thought. Suddenly, whoosh, his vision turned dark. As if he had passed through a time tunnel, rays of light pierced through in front of him. What's going on? Lin Feng widened his eyes in shock. In an instant, light bloomed in front of his eyes, and he seemed to have entered a strange yet familiar space. Floating in the air and looking down at all life, Lin Feng's heart instantly sped up. Everything in front of him shocked him. There were at least tens of millions, no, hundreds of millions, billions of worms. There were countless of them, and the senses of his life spirit were in a mess. The sea of worms was so dense that it had exceeded his capacity. They were devouring crazily, devouring everything. The aura of these worms was familiar, as if he had seen them somewhere before. In front of him, a huge city was devoured by these countless worms in just a quarter of an hour, and it no longer existed. The black mass was extremely shocking. The human warriors fled crazily, but they could not escape the pursuit of these worms. Faint wings flew up, and the astonishing number of worms drowned everything in the form of a sea of worms. It was extremely horrifying. These worms, Lin Feng's eyes widened. They are the worms in the chaotic swamp. Yes, exactly the same. That deathly aura. It can't be wrong. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat as he recalled the wing bug that Wing had. They were so similar to these worms. Ruins, dead silence. There is a sense of desolation and emptiness in the air. This feeling is so similar to the chaotic swamp. Wait. Lin Feng widened his eyes and stared at the ruins. The light in front of him suddenly burst out violently. He seemed to have passed through space and arrived at a familiar place. Fierce Yin School. Lin Feng's face was pale. Worms covered the sky and earth. Some flew in the sky, some crawled on the ground, and they were densely packed. That terrifying buzzing sound was enough to make one go crazy. The warriors of Fierce Yin School resisted with all their might, but they could not stop the endless worms from attacking Fierce Yin School. There was no blood, only devouring and devouring. It was an extremely shocking scene. He felt as if he had entered hell. He watched his school being destroyed and his fellow disciples being devoured, but he could not do anything. His face twisted. Lin Feng's fingernails dug deep into his palms, and his veins bulged. His heart seemed to be twisted into pieces, and a thick anger rose. And at this moment, white light bloomed in front of him. Whoosh! Lin Feng opened his eyes and returned to reality. In front of him, his master, Lei Ming, was looking at him with his sparkling eyes. Lin Feng clenched his teeth, and his eyes focused. He said in a low voice, "Master, just now, this was Lei Ming said slowly. Yinling Mansion 3 years later." His voice was calm, but Lin Feng's face was extremely pale. His footsteps staggered, and his eyes widened. Lin Feng's breathing seemed to stop. How could it be? First update, next update, 2000 hours trailer. The second part of Yinling Mansion will end today. Chapter 730. In the boundless universe, there are various constellations. Every constellation is good at something. For example, the Phoenix constellation is good at the Tao of Fire. The Southern Cross constellation is good at the Tao of Wood. And the Dragonfly constellation is good at controlling insects. Lei Ming said slowly, his voice calm. However, Lin Feng was extremely shocked when he heard those words. About the boundless universe, about the legendary universe experts, and the constellations. Wait, Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Master, you said that the Dragonfly constellation is good at controlling insects. Could it be that the illusion just now No, the massacre of the Yinling mansion 3 years later was caused by the Dragonfly constellation's experts? Smart. Lei Jing nodded. Hearing his master's affirmation, Lin Feng was even more shocked. Raising his head and looking at his master, Lin Feng pursed his lips and waited. There seemed to be a big secret. That day, the Southern Cross constellation and Dragonfly constellation fought, and there were countless casualties. Lei Ming's eyes lit up. The battle affected the galaxies, and the universe was destroyed. Countless universe experts died or were seriously injured. One of the universe experts from the Southern Cross constellation and another from the Dragonfly constellation both died in the Douling world. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he casually pointed at it. An image appeared in front of him, and it kept enlarging, showing 3 different colors. Chaotic swamp, Lin Feng exclaimed. What he saw was the black swamp, the purple swamp, and the red swamp. That's right, Lei Ming continued. The Southern Cross constellation's experts are in the purple swamp, while the Dragonfly constellation's experts are in the red swamp. Their spaceships are too damaged to take off. Because of their injuries, they can't do anything to each other, so they are resting. Boom! Lin Feng's head shook. At this moment, all his questions were answered. No wonder the chaotic swamp had 3 different colors, each different from the other. No wonder there were so many insects in the chaotic swamp, and many of the beasts and wood spirits were mutated. So that's why. The purple mist in the purple swamp is emitted by the wood spirit land. In other words, then the wood spiritual land is... Lin Feng's eyes widened and his breathing quickened. Disciple, you are cultivating in the spaceship of the Southern Cross constellation. Lei Ming's voice was calm, but it made Lin Feng's chest heave up and down. He was extremely shocked. Don't worry, this expert from the Southern Cross constellation is very friendly. Furthermore, Lei Ming smiled faintly. By chance, you have a friend who has been accepted as a disciple by this expert. She will not harm you. Friends? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Master, is it Xian? Lei Ming smiled faintly and said, Well, you can rest assured now. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. Finally, he felt as if a huge rock had been lifted off his chest. To be accepted as a disciple by a super void powerhouse, Xian Er's future was limitless, just as he had guessed that day. Xian Er's fortuitous encounter was even better than his. Wait a minute. Lin Feng's expression suddenly changed. From the beginning until now, his master had seen him and told him everything. Why? Could it be? Disciple, the doppelganger you want is in the red swamp. Super void powerhouse Wu Ming. Lei Ming's voice sounded leisurely. Lin Feng was completely dumbfounded. After going around in circles, the doppelganger his master wanted him to find was actually a super void powerhouse. Was this a joke? After a long time, Lin Feng let out a long breath. His face was green. What his master Lei Ming said was too shocking. Disciple understands master's painstaking efforts. Lin Feng lowered his head and said with a bitter smile, The body of a starry sky elite is indeed incomparable, but that Wu Ming is probably more than 1,000,000 times stronger than this disciple. Wanting to seize his body, isn't that? You're wrong, Lei Ming said faintly. That Wu Ming only has the strength of a Super Void Lord, and his body is also at the Super Void Lord level. Great shock. Lin Feng immediately held his breath. In an instant, the words Wei Hai said to him that day appeared in his mind. Only Super Void Lords can enter the Red Swamp. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. At this moment, he completely understood. If Wu Guai really recovered the strength of a Starry Sky Elite, not to mention a Starry Sky Elite, even a Saint King Elite would undoubtedly die if they entered. And his master also said that the insect race would only sweep through Yanling Prefecture in 3 years. In other words, Wu Ming hadn't recovered his strength yet. Master, please enlighten me. Lin Feng's confidence soared. He cupped his hands and said, There had to be a chance. Otherwise, his master wouldn't have told him. Just now, he was frightened by the name of a super void powerhouse. Wu Ming has been recuperating since he was seriously injured. It was only 2 years ago that he began to recover. He's up to no good, Lei Ming said slowly. Now that he's recovered, his strength hasn't stabilized yet. Disciple, you have a chance. In 1 or 2 months, there won't be any more opportunities. Lin Feng was overjoyed. If his master said there was a chance, then there was definitely a chance. Wu Ming's defense is very strong. He mainly relies on controlling insects to attack, Lei Meng said. If it were other Super Void Lords, even peak Super Void Lords, they wouldn't be able to get past his insect sea. Only you can restrain him. Fire. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He understood what his master meant. Because he had the endless fire of rebirth, he could restrain Wu Ming's endless insect sea. Lei Zheng nodded. Now, there's only one thing to solve. Break through his body's defense. In the Thunderstar realm, Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the ground with a fierce expression. With the Thunder Slaughter armor, he looked like the incarnation of Thunder Slaughter. Dense lightning covered his body. Lin Feng's aura was unusually strong. Star technique, driven by the power of the constellation. It's the embodiment of a Super Void Lord's true strength. With a calm heart, Lin Feng soon immersed himself in cultivation. He didn't need a star ring or a star scepter. After reaching the Super Void Lord level, the human soul was now a small starry sky. Master said that this is the prototype of the starry sky, Lin Feng said softly. And this is my main star. It was unusually warm and familiar. This small but bright star was the only star that existed in the human soul. It was formed by the pure power of the Ursa major constellation. It was like a part of the constellation. Through it, one could directly sense and enter the Ursa major constellation. It was as though there was an invisible door that existed between the human spirit and the Ursa major constellation. Whoosh! Light flashed in front of him. 7 spots of light shone, and countless small spots of light also shone. However, compared to the dazzling light of the main star, these small spots of light were like green leaves and red flowers. They were inconspicuous. The luster was much dimmer. Master said that the 7 main stars have their own star techniques of different systems. They're the special series, eukaryotic series, offensive series, defensive series, control series, summoning series, and enhancement series. The brighter the main star, the stronger the sensitivity, and the higher the probability of learning the star technique of that system. But that's not necessarily the case. There are too many factors involved in whether or not one can learn it. For example, comprehension, cultivation conditions, and so on. After thinking about it, Lin Feng's eyes flickered slightly. However, he didn't hesitate to enter the first main star, the special series main star. It was because this was the main star that he was most familiar with, had the strongest sensitivity, and was the brightest. Whoosh! The light in front of him lit up. It was as if he had jumped from one space to another. The feeling was completely different. In front of him, there were dense stars shining with luster. There was a strong power of the constellation that converged into a starry sky, forming a strange scene. Sense with the power of the constellation. Enter it and comprehend the star technique. Lin Feng looked at the dense stars around him, but he felt hesitant. There are so many first-level stars. Which one should I comprehend? Lin Feng felt a headache coming on. It was as if he had entered a treasure vault and didn't know which one to choose. These first-level stars were different from the main star. As long as the power of the constellation reached the first level stars would naturally appear without any difference in brightness. After all, they belonged to the same main star and were all first-level stars. How could they be distinguished? There were too many factors involved in the comprehension of star techniques. Just as he was hesitating, all of a sudden, Lin Feng felt his heart skip a beat and his body flashed. He closed his eyes, and it was as if something was guiding him. A familiar energy appeared. It's Master. Master is helping me choose. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly, and he was immediately overjoyed. With Master helping him choose, he would undoubtedly be able to avoid taking many detours and wasting time. His figure stopped with a loud thud. Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes, and there were faint spots of light in front of his eyes. The dazzling first-level stars made his heart surge. It's you, Lin Feng said with a smile. Whoosh. The power of the constellation was instilled. Star technique bears power, level 1. Master, help me choose it. It's indeed what I need the most now. With a smile, Lin Feng clenched his fists in joy. As long as he could comprehend the star technique and exert the power of the constellation, he would definitely be able to display the powerful power of a Star Lord. Defeating Wu Jiao was not a dream. Hua! In his mind, images kept appearing one after another. A big bear stood between heaven and earth with its head held high and roared. Its huge body and terrifying power made everything feel shocked. Its power was shocking. The thick and solid palm slammed down, causing the ground to crumble and crack. The terrifying power was filled with strong lightning and was full of impressive power. Who could stop it? Impressive. It can definitely increase the attack power greatly. Lin Feng thought to himself. He was completely immersed in the comprehension of the star technique. Lightning flashed on his body, and the power of the constellation was continuously consumed. However, the thunder armor was exceptionally dazzling. The lightning horn condensed powerful energy and continuously replenished the power that Lin Feng consumed, forming a stable cycle. In the Thunderstar realm, at the 5th level, Lin Feng began to comprehend. Second update. Third update 2200 hours. Chapter 731. The Fifth Heaven. The time ratio was 1:10,000. Including the previous 4 heavens, they had a total of 11,111 days to cultivate. The first team of 100 martial artists from Fierce Yin sect gritted their teeth and continued to improve themselves. They knew very well that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If they missed it, they would not have another chance in the future. Because of Lin Feng's existence, they were able to bring them to the 5th heaven, where few people could enter. They kept cultivating and cultivating. For the people from Fierce Yin sect, this was a great opportunity. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Time passed by slowly. For martial artists who were determined to improve their strength, the time for cultivation was always very short. 10,000 days, in the blink of an eye, 9,000 days had passed. Less than 1 out of 10. However, the effect was obvious. On the scoreboard, the people from Fierce Yin sect were far ahead. Other than Lin Feng, the other 99 people occupied the top 99 places. Far ahead. Among them, Ji Xiao and Zhu Ling had not only reached the peak of Star Sea level, but they had also entered the 3rd stage and were 1 step away from Star Lord level. Just like Wan Macho and Lin Feng, as long as they were willing, they could break through and become real Star Lords at any time. The 3 rising stars of Fierce Yin sect were now completely bright. Even without Lin Feng, with Fierce Yin sect's current strength, it was enough to dominate Yanling Prefecture. Yanling Prefecture was no longer a threat. At this moment, after the same 9,000 days, Lin Feng finally reaped some benefits. Huff, huff. Lin Feng's breathing was very slow and even. Outside his body, dense lightning flashed and wrapped around his body like fairies. His aura was majestic, making it difficult for people to get close. It was as if a terrifying bear was attached to his body, roaring arrogantly and domineering. It was the dense constellation power that condensed the intense light to create such a powerful aura. At this moment, Lin Feng, who had been meditating for 9,000 days, finally opened his eyes. Swoosh! Bright light shone. The clear, domineering aura was filled with a wisp of cold light. The constellation power in his right arm was completely gathered. His muscles seemed to have exploded and solidified together. That feeling was as if all the constellation power in all the cells in his body were released. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he suddenly shouted. Boom! Faintly, a giant bear seemed to roar. Lin Feng's aura dissipated as he stood there calmly, radiating a dazzling light. The corner of his mouth flashed with a faint smile as he clenched his right fist. That was a strong sense of confidence. I finally succeeded. Star techniques are indeed extensive and profound. Lin Feng's eyes deepened as he nodded. No wonder Duo said that I would need 10,000 years to reach the star realm level. The comprehension of this star technique alone has already taken so much time, said Jiang Chun. Lin Feng was extremely shocked in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. He felt as if he was in a dream. Perhaps only the time for an incense stick to burn had passed in the dream, but an entire 9,000 days had already flown by in the outside world. It was true that 1 year and 1 second passed. He had no idea how long he had been cultivating. However, it wasn't Lin Feng's fault. After all, his war god aptitude was only mid-grade. Moreover, this mid-grade referred to Yinling Mansion's mid-grade. The sensitivity of the constellation was low, and it was his first time comprehending it. Hence, it was naturally slow. Besides, even if it was the same star technique, the difficulty of comprehending it was different. Some star techniques were extremely profound, such as the strength of the Ursa Major, which was even harder to comprehend than some star techniques of the second star. However, the process was not important. What was important was Lin Feng had already succeeded in comprehending it. His first star technique. Boom! There was a shocking sound of a piercing explosion. Lin Feng stood with his spear, his eyes glistening faintly. Holding the purple crystal spear in his hand, he felt a slight distraction and smiled in satisfaction. In front of him, a ray of light was slowly dissipating, and the terrifying and powerful aura was like a firework that bloomed and disappeared instantly. This is the guardian of the stairway to heaven of the fifth heaven. It can't withstand a single blow. Lin Feng's eyes were light as he murmured calmly. His current strength was so strong that it was unbelievable for him. With such a shocking increase in strength, he had a great deal of confidence in fighting Wu Ji. A starry sky powerhouse? Lin Feng smiled calmly. I'm here, in front of the rankings. Everyone was bored out of their wits. There was nothing to see on the rankings this year. Instead of saying that it was a battle between the various elite warriors of Yinling Prefecture, it was more like an internal conflict between Fierce Yin sect. The first 99 places were all warriors of Fierce Yin sect. Apart from the rise and fall of their rankings, there was no change in their affiliation. Only the last 100 places were fought over by other forces. Strange, there are 100 powerhouses from Fierce Yin sect, but Lin Feng is not there. It's indeed strange. Lin Feng clearly brought them to the fifth heaven, but where did Lin Feng go? Don't worry about it. Have you forgotten what happened last year? Lin Feng will definitely be at the top of the rankings again, looking down on all the juniors and leading everyone in terms of points. Everyone was discussing fervently, but they were just curious. No one doubted Lin Feng's strength. The title of the strongest in Yinling Prefecture was won with his strength. While they were talking, the rankings changed again. All the warriors exclaimed and yelled. Lin Feng's name finally appeared again, firmly at the top of the rankings. Points: 1111100. More than 10 million. All of a sudden, he gained 10 million points. Under everyone's anticipation, Lin Feng finally appeared. Fierce Yin School once again dominated the top 100 rankings, and Lin Feng once again looking down on all the heroes. He entered the sixth heaven. He broke through the wall and stepped into this legendary place. However, Lin Feng did not even stay for half a minute and left directly. The time was short, only a day. Even if there were 100,000 days in the sixth heaven, Lin Feng could only use it for 1 day in the outside world. After 1 day, it meant that the time in the sixth heaven would be used up. He did not leave Yinling Prefecture, but only for a short time. This was Lin Feng's privilege. Fortunately, I have the star talisman of Green Smoke City. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. In a split second, he crushed the star talisman, and his figure blurred. Lin Feng disappeared in a split second. Whoosh! Lin Feng sprinted with all his might. From peak Star Sea level to Star Lord level, his body improved by more than 10 times. He did not need to unleash his star power anymore, and his body was already far stronger than before. Like a phantom, Lin Feng sped into the chaotic swamp at extreme speed. It took him a lot of time to enter the huge, chaotic swamp, and now, in just an instant, he had arrived. The purple mist had turned blue because of the closing of the red sky tunnel. Entering here again, Lin Feng's state was completely different. I didn't expect there to be a star sea expert from the Southern Cross constellation in the purple swamp. No wonder there are so many terrifying giant trees in the wood spirit land. It is indeed incredible. Thinking in his heart, Lin Feng did not slow down at all. He sped forward, seeing many bugs along the way, but he did not stop. His goal was the red swamp. Wu Ming, the chaotic mountain, was the starting point for me to enter the Do spirit world. Xian was the first martial artist I met here. If it weren't for me, Xianer would probably never have entered the wood spirit land. Many things are fated. Lin Feng smiled faintly, feeling as if there was a pair of invisible hands pushing fate. The past 2 years in the Yanling mansion were like a dream, like a dreamy fog. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long breath. I'm about to leave, but I have a lot of thoughts. Reminiscing with a smile, Lin Feng's heart was very calm. The chaotic mountain, no, the chaotic swamp, had many memories of him. The wood spirit land is up ahead. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Just as he was about to speed forward, Lin Feng suddenly frowned. The aura of a human soul seemed to resonate with the world. Lin Feng instantly felt a few familiar auras. Oh, Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. His figure paused and then disappeared. Master, it should be around here. The voice was low. It was a middle-aged man. After investigating for a long time, I found out that Lin Feng had many fortuitous encounters here. I want to see what secrets are hidden in this chaotic swamp. The eagle eyes flashed. It was a man in a black robe. His aura was extremely strong. With one look, one could tell that he was powerful. He was definitely not an ordinary martial artist like those in Green Smoke City. There must be a big secret, the middle-aged man said seriously. Otherwise, how could Lin Feng's strength increase by leaps and bounds in such a short period of time? Now that the Yanling Manor is full of mysteries, we must seize every opportunity. The eagle-eyed man's figure kept moving. He looked around. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He was suppressing his excitement. It's here, it's here. After he finished speaking, he didn't even pay attention to his companions and flew away like the wind. Wait for me, master. The middle-aged man chased after him. The two figures slowly dissipated. At this moment, whoosh, a black figure appeared. His eyes were bright and full of expression. Lin Feng. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. I didn't expect to meet them here. Lin Feng smiled faintly. His eyes revealed a flash of killing intent. Whoosh. Lin Feng's figure turned into a ray of colorful light, and he soon disappeared. It's here. Haha, I finally found it. The eagle-eyed man said excitedly. Congratulations, master. You fulfilled your wish. The middle-aged man smiled flatteringly. In front of them was the passage Lin Feng used to enter the wood spiritual land. Hole, hole, hole. Faint spirit chi spread out. The eagle-eyed man and the middle-aged man looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with joy. Their figures flashed. Just as they were about to enter the hole, a black figure suddenly appeared in front of them and blocked their path. It was silent, like a ghost. What? The eagle-eyed man and the middle-aged man's expressions changed instantly. However, when they saw the face of the black-clothed man in front of them, their eyes widened. Their legs went weak, and they were scared out of their wits. It's been a long time, Han Lu, Han Wei. Lin Feng smiled faintly. The two people in front of him were the two bastards who tried to kill him and betrayed Fierce Yin sect. Han Lu and his eldest disciple, Han Wei. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Third update. I forgot to send a second update just now. The fourth update is at 000. Chapter 732. Lin Feng. The corner of Han Wei's mouth twitched. He was shocked. Feeling that oppressive pressure, Han Lu's complexion was extremely unsightly, a mixture of green and white. Not long ago, Lin Feng was like an ant in front of him. Now he was like a tall mountain standing above his head. He could only look up to him. So strong. Han Lu's heart was trembling. Is this the strength of the strongest person in Yinling Mansion? Han Lu staggered and retreated. He no longer had the will to fight. Thinking of the irreconcilable hatred between him and Lin Feng, Han Lu felt as if his heart had fallen into the abyss. His spine was cold. Instantly, boom, Han Lu's star power exploded. His whole body was covered in cold light. A terrifying force was released from his hand. However, it was not aimed at Lin Feng. Instead, it was aimed at his eldest disciple, Han Wei. Han Wei was in excruciating pain. The powerful force made Han Wei rush toward Lin Feng. Seizing this moment, Han Lu's astral power burst out completely. He didn't even look back as he ran for his life. In order to save his life, he used all his means. So what if he sacrificed his disciple? Han Lu never cared. You're still the same. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Cold, heartless, selfish. Han Lu, it's time to settle the grudge between you and me a year ago. His voice was calm. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His right hand condensed the power of constellation. Red light flashed. Lin Feng's right hand released the force. Han Wei's hoarse scream disappeared. Han Lu was a scumbag. Han Wei was not a good person either. The crime of betraying fierce Yin sect was enough for him to die 1,000 times. He would bury the disciples of fierce Yin sect who died in vain. Do you think you can escape, Han Lu? Lin Feng smiled coldly. Bang! Bang! In his hands, 2 blazing fireballs appeared in a split second. Closing his eyes, Han Lu's breath was under his control. In an instant, whoosh, whoosh, the fireball shot out. Like 2 flaming meteors, their speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they caught up with Han Lu, who was fleeing in panic. The red starlight wrapped around the fireball and flashed with an extremely demonic light. It illuminated Han Lu's twisted and aghast face, which was filled with extreme fear. No! Han Lu screamed, his body trembling violently. But in an instant, pong, boom, the fireball exploded. His voice suddenly vanished just like Han Wei's. It was completely silent. The flames gradually dissipated, and Han Lu's figure had already turned into nothingness. Not even a speck of dust remained. They had completely disappeared. The cycle of the heavens is always unpleasant. If you do too many bad things, there will naturally be retribution. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, his expression calm. To him, killing the 2 of them was as easy as blowing off dust. Meeting Han Lu was purely a coincidence. It was more like a heavenly arrangement, like a calamity. Of course, it was Han Lu's calamity. Finally, we're here again. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The scene in front of him was very familiar, but also extremely unfamiliar. It was a stretch of desolation and dead silence. The situation here was even more serious than the purple swamp. An intense red light bloomed, like the blood of the Grim Reaper, making one feel suffocated and unbearable. Lin Feng looked ahead with bright eyes, and he could not help but clench his fists. In his mind, what he had seen not long ago appeared again, and killing intent burst forth. In 3 years, Yinling Manor will be destroyed in the hands of Wu Qi. Fierce Yin sect will no longer exist. His heart was filled with anger, and his blood seemed to be burning. Lin Feng's eyes burned, and he could vaguely feel a trace of danger from the aura of the human spirit. There was a very strong aura here. I'm here, Wu Qi, Lin Feng muttered indifferently, and his expression was ice cold. He stepped forward without hesitation, and an intense killing intent burst forth. Even if it was not for the sake of his clone, he would definitely not run away from this battle, and he could not run away from it. It was impossible for him to watch the Yinling Mansion be destroyed and the fierce Yin sect be massacred. This was his responsibility. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lin Feng's speed exploded to the extreme. Red starlight condensed outside of his body, and Lin Feng's eyes were cold and bright. Buzz, buzz! Sounds kept coming into his ears. One by one, the insects flapped their wings and flew over, launching attacks at him. There were so many of them that they were innumerable. Whoosh! Lin Feng was like a sharp arrow. His expression was serious, and he penetrated through the insects. He could not stop. Once he stopped, he would start killing. If he did not kill this dense sea of insects, it would be difficult for him to enter the deepest part of the red swamp. Although he was not afraid, he only had one day. If he missed this day, he would have to wait for a year before he could enter Yinling Manor again. This time, not only did he have to kill Wu Qi and solve the hidden danger of Yinling Manor, he had to make the best use of his time and do it within a day. The task was very difficult. I must be fast. I must not let these insects surround me. Lin Feng's eyes were clear, and his mind was completely focused. In the air, it was difficult to use the advantage of the wind vortex, and his change of direction was not as good as on land. But now, on land, there were countless insects crawling, and it was very frightening. Once he landed on land, he would be trapped in a sea of insects almost instantly. Even if he could solve it, he would have wasted a lot of time. I must not stop. My senses are getting stronger. The red swamp is not much wider than the purple swamp, and I should be very close to the deepest part. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he felt wave after wave of insects flying towards him. His heart was firm. This time, he would either succeed or die trying. Close, they were getting closer. Lin Feng's heart beat faster and faster, and his vision was completely blocked by the sea of insects. They were densely packed, and he did not know how many of them there were. Even if you were to let him kill, he would be tired of killing. The deeper he went into the red swamp, the closer he got to Wu Qi, the more insects there were, and the denser the sea of insects was. Finally, bang! His human soul trembled. In his mind, a strange existence appeared. It was like a huge cocoon, and it had a big bald head. It was strange, and one could tell that it was not a creature from the Douling world. It did not look like a human, a beast, or with spirit. Insects kept crawling out of its body, and it was very frightening. Suddenly, a voice sounded in his mind, but it was in a language that he could not understand. But just based on the tone, it should be a warning or a threat. Lin Feng smiled faintly. At this moment, the sea of insects had reached a terrifying density. It's time. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He should have enough time to escape. He could not keep avoiding this sea of insects. If he wanted to kill Wu Qi, he had to clear this sea of insects without any obstruction. Intense flames suddenly rose. Rebirth fire. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and an intense red light burst out. The flames covered the sky and the earth, burning wildly. Mixed with the star power, it devoured the tiny insects. He seemed to hear the shrill cries of the insects. Suddenly, the sharp and unpleasant voice of Wu Qi sounded, as if it was insulting him. However, the insults of the enemy were compliments. The flames spread. The flames kept erupting, and the sea of insects kept appearing, like moths flying into a flame. It was a protracted battle. It was very difficult. The sea of insects seemed to be endless. If it were other warriors, they would have exhausted their star power. However, Lin Feng walked step by step into the area where Wu Qi was. Although his speed was extremely slow, he was still getting closer and closer. 2 hours. 4 hours. 6 hours. Time passed slowly. The density of the sea of insects was decreasing. As for Lin Feng, he was now extremely close to Wu Qi. In fact, he could even see the ugly existence. In fact, in the eyes of humans, Wu Qi was indeed ugly. Very ugly. However, its strength was not to be trifled with. The endless power of the sea of insects was enough to exhaust a Star Lord to death. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. The foundation of a Star Lord is too strong. Although it has regressed due to the serious injuries and only has the strength of a Star Lord, its application of strength is comparable to a Star Realm Lord. Unfortunately, it can't move because of its injuries. Otherwise, I can't take advantage of its situation. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with confidence. His master had said that Wu Qi could not move its body yet. Otherwise, it could attack him with the sea of insects while retreating, and he would not be able to do anything. Even if he had endless star power, he would not be able to break through the endless sea of insects and attack its body. But now go. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In an instant, the devouring fire and the rebirth fire intersected, giving off a dazzling light. The strongest power caused the air to fluctuate violently. The crazy power of the magnetic explosion appeared and spread to the entire area. Killer move. Boom! Crazy explosion. The terrifying power affected everything. The endless sea of insects was cleared out, leaving a huge, empty space. At this time, it would take some time for the other insects to reach Wu Qi's side. And this time was enough for him to use his ultimate move. This time, the magnetic explosion was just to clear the area. Now, Lin Feng's eyes glowed. Although his body was injured, the power of the magnetic explosion was controlled perfectly. It was only a light injury. It was not a problem. Boom! Starlight shone. In his body, a familiar power rippled. Lin Feng's aura changed instantly. The purple crystal spear in his hand vibrated and roared like thunder. The purple light was completely bright. Behind Lin Feng, there seemed to be a giant bear roaring, shaking the world. Standing proudly between heaven and earth, the thick red light condensed on his left arm. The veins on Lin Feng's forehead popped out. Crazy. Clang, clang, clang. Like a hill, Lin Feng's left arm was thick and strong. The terrifying power completely liberated his left arm. His muscles were condensed to the extreme, and his cells were filled with powerful power. In an instant, acupuncture points erupt. Star technique, bear's power. Hashtag Yinat. A hoarse, an unpleasant voice sounded. Wu Qi's big bald head was distorted and his face was hideous, like a menacing ghost. A thick defense condensed around his body, forming an indestructible existence. The surrounding insects dashed towards him frantically in a bid to protect their master. Lin Feng fell into a desperate situation, but there was no way to retreat. However, the thrust of the spear made the world tremble. Goose Feather Spear. The realm of the spear was accompanied by the release of a special series, Star Technique. Lin Feng's spear was more than 10 times stronger than the one he used against the witch race. The power of his left arm was fully exerted and the power of the constellation condensed, allowing Lin Feng to attack to the extreme. Wu Qi's heart-wrenching voice sounded in his ears, but all of his defenses were completely shattered. The shocking aura instantly, boom! There was a sudden explosion. The power of the spear was unstoppable. Update. Fourth update. Chapter 733. A heart-wrenching sound could be heard. The sound of the scream was ear-piercing. However, Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he did not show any mercy. The power of the amethyst spear and the dense power of the constellation stacked together and pierced a huge hole in the huge cocoon. Thunder rumbled, and the power of the constellation surged in crazily, destroying everything in the cocoon. Bang! Bang! Even the engulfing flame was boiling and ferocious. Master said before, Wu Qi is like a heavenly soul master. His power is concentrated in control, and he has not recovered from his injuries. He can only rely on this shell, and I only need to destroy this shell. At that time, Wu Qi's power will degenerate to its final stage. Lin Feng said softly, and the flames exploded mercilessly. His constellation power was limited, and he could not destroy this huge cocoon. However, there was a lot of engulfing flame. Although it was not as endless as the rebirth flame, it was easy to destroy this huge cocoon. However, at this moment, the endless sea of insects flew down and crashed into a shocking wall of fire. Flame Dragon Shield. Bang! Bang! Flames sprayed out like many roaring dragons. I need to speed up. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. No matter how strong the Flame Dragon Shield was, the concentrated attacks of the sea of insects were still terrifying, and their numbers kept increasing. Not long later, the attacks of the sea of insects would break through his defense. At that time, getting injured was a small matter, but if Wu Qi escaped, it would be hard for him to get another chance. I can make it in time. Lin Feng's senses were extremely strong. Wu Qi's aura had already withered, and he was like a withered flower. His life force was getting thinner and thinner. As the huge cocoon was slowly engulfed, Wu Qi's power also slowly disappeared. Master said before, it is impossible for me to kill him with my power, but I just need to force him to degenerate to his final state. The galaxy is indeed vast, and there are all kinds of races. Humans are not the only rulers. Lin Feng nodded and his eyes lit up. The structure of this Wu Qi was extremely strange. If it was a human, even if it was a heavily injured Starry Sky expert, how could he surpass it? Including the Southern Cross constellation martial artist who lived in seclusion in the Purple Swamp, he had entered a few times, but he did not even see her face. Everyone has their own strengths. Master said that every race has its own advantages and disadvantages. It's hard to say who is better or worse. Time passed slowly. Wu Ming's aura had completely declined. The huge cocoon was destroyed, and even the countless flying insects in the surroundings disappeared as if they had evaporated. It was very strange. Pong! A violent explosion sounded. The cocoon completely burst open, and an unpleasant smell spread out. However, Lin Feng didn't care at all. The flames on his body had already disappeared as he stared ahead with a burning gaze. At this moment, the ugly and terrifying Wu Ming in front of him had already disappeared. Replacing, it was a beautiful body that was like a crystal. It was smooth and flexible, just like a mirror. It looked like a work of art. This is Wu Qi's true body, the original, the most primitive existence. Master really didn't lie to me. It's really not bad. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Thinking of what he saw just now, that monster-like body, his heart thumped. If he had such an ugly clone, even if it was a Starry Sky martial artist, he really wouldn't be willing. Although the one in front of him wasn't human, at least it was much more pleasing to the eye. Return. After killing Wu Ming, Lin Feng immediately returned to the Goose Feather Supreme residence without stopping. Although he only had a day's time for the mission, killing Wu Ming took less than 8 hours. The remaining time was quite ample. Using the Star Talisman to return to Wild Goose City and then rush to the Goose Feather Supreme residence, Lin Feng didn't even need an hour. It was very easy. In fact, even if he ran directly from the Chaotic Swamp to the Goose Feather Supreme residence, Lin Feng still had time. A Star-Lord level martial artist physique was extremely strong. However, a Starry Sky martial artist is a Starry Sky martial artist. Even if it's degenerated to the final state, it's still not something I can destroy. According to Master, Wu Ming should be in eternal sleep, just like when he fell into the Douling world. Dragonfly, constellation, Starry Sky, really mysterious. His eyes flickered. Lin Feng yearned for it. Raising his head, he gazed at the boundless horizon, and his heart was at ease. He really wanted to see the vast and endless starry sky, to explore and experience, just like his master by Li Feng. I wonder where the Phoenix constellation and the Ursa Major constellation will be. What will it be? Thinking, Lin Feng's eyes flickered. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, like a light arrow piercing through, instantly piercing through. Heading straight to the Goose Feather Supreme residence. Lightning Star Realm. Hua! Light flashed. Entering the Lightning Star Realm again, Lin Feng wasn't alone, but had an additional crystal body, returning with a full load. I'm back, Master. Lin Feng smiled faintly, in a good mood. With Wu Ming's body, he could form a clone. Not only could it withstand the soul power of a Star-Lord, it could also withstand the blood inheritance of his master Lei Ming. What a joke! That was the body of a Starry Sky martial artist. Instantly, boom! His head shook. The terrifying vibration seemed to shatter his body. Such power! Lin Feng's expression changed greatly, feeling as if the connection between his body and soul had been lost. Just that vibration alone had made him lose his strength. Unparalleled pressure. Like thunder roaring. Clang! A sonorous sound. Lin Feng's eyes widened, and his master's appearance seemed to appear in front of him. His six tails stood tall, and his eyes flashed with cold light. Terrifying lightning gathered around his body, and his master's voice sounded in his ears. Relax. His heart instantly calmed down. His master's appearance was like a reassuring pill. His consciousness blurred, and it felt like his bones were being separated. Bit by bit, his soul seemed to leave his body, and under the pressure of an extremely powerful energy, it seemed to be moving slowly, as if touching a completely different kind of skin, entering a layer of barrier. However, under the guidance of that enormous power, he was unstoppable. But such powerful pressure, such terrifying pressure, what's going on? Lin Feng felt as if his heart was being crushed by the pressure from all directions. He was enduring extreme pain, and his consciousness felt like it was about to shatter. It's resisting. Lin Feng suddenly understood. He had entered Wu Ming's body. Wu Ming's consciousness was rejecting him, driving him away. This feeling was very familiar, just like when he had used the starry sky pupil to devour the soul of the little celestial hound. This was a blatant occupation, complete devouring. But this time, this power was far beyond the limits of his ability. Wu Ming was a starry sky martial artist, after all. Even in his weakest state, he wasn't someone he could compare to. However, Lin Feng didn't panic because he knew his master would definitely make a move. Boom! That extremely powerful force appeared again. It was like a high and mighty king, intimidating everything. Instantly, Lin Feng's heart calmed down, and the pressure from all directions suddenly disappeared, as if it was a dream, and there was no trace of it at all. At this moment, under the guidance of the force, he seemed to have entered a special area. That feeling was like entering the main cabin of a spaceship. Thump, thump, thump. It was like the sound of a heartbeat. In front of him, a body seemed to have appeared. In a split second, boom, his head trembled violently again. An overwhelming amount of powerful energy surged, and there was no room for resistance. In an instant, Lin Feng fainted. Time passed little by little. Lin Feng's consciousness gradually recovered, and he felt completely different. He seemed to be in a completely unfamiliar body, and it was a very strange feeling. Awake? A faint voice entered his ears, and Lin Feng was shocked. Yes, master, Lin Feng replied. He was too familiar with this voice. When he opened his eyes, he saw his master, who was flashing with faint lightning, looking at him with sparkling eyes and a faint smile. Take a look at your new body, Lei Meng said slowly. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he immediately looked down. His hands, feet, and body were almost exactly the same as before, but his skin was brighter and more flexible, and his movements seemed to be full of vitality. It was as if he had endless power, and it felt very strange. Master, this is... Lin Feng was surprised. I helped you reconstruct your body, Lei Meng said with a smile. Disciple, you're used to fighting in a human body, so there's no need to change. Moreover, the essence of the doppelganger has not changed, Lei Meng said slowly. It is just a change of form. Lin Feng's lips curled up, and he was pleasantly surprised. Although Wu Ming's body was perfect, he was still a human, and naturally, he liked the human form the most. Lin Feng cupped his hands and said, Thank you, master. Although his master was dignified and meticulous, he was quite humane. Lin Feng clenched his fists and felt that his body was 10 times or 100 times stronger than before. He was shocked. He had thought that his body was strong enough after dual cultivation, but compared to his current body, which was also at the Star Lord level, it was undoubtedly dwarfed. The difference was huge. Well, after all, the innate conditions of humans are much worse, and there is a big gap between them and the Magi. There are too many races in the boundless universe, and many of them have bodies stronger than the Magi. Lin Feng thought for a moment and smiled. Although he didn't know if Wu Ming's body was strong or not, at least it was much stronger than his original body. My potential as a god of war will be greatly improved. Once I complete Master's blood inheritance, I will be reborn. Lin Feng's eyes were burning with confidence. His path as a god of war would be like that of a celestial spirit master, fusing with the blood of the phoenix and being reborn. Just as he was thinking, Lin Feng couldn't help but exclaim softly. He had forgotten about fusing with his doppelganger just now. Where did his original body go? First update. Chapter 734. In an instant, Lin Feng found it. Not far away, his original body was floating in the air. Thick energy gathered, flashing with dazzling lightning. There was a very special feeling, but he couldn't describe it. It was as if something in his body was about to wake up. Even his human soul trembled slightly, feeling a sense of déjà vu. Master, my body, Lin Feng said doubtfully. Even if he didn't have a human soul, he could still control his body with his life soul. This was proven when he had a secret clone. But now, losing your human soul might not be a bad thing for you. Focusing on the path of becoming a heavenly god can bring out your greatest potential. Lin Feng nodded when he heard his master's voice. Indeed, because of the existence of the blood of the phoenix, his talent as a heavenly spirit master was far better than his talent as a war god. Besides, even if he practiced dual cultivation now, his strength as a heavenly spirit master would surpass that of a war god soon. Lei Meng's eyes were bright. The only problem is that your human soul is connected to the burning life Astral and can control the devouring fire. Now that your human soul is gone, you can't control the devouring fire anymore. If you use your life soul to control it, your body will explode and you will die. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly, but he understood. He knew that his life soul controlled the fire of rebirth, and his human soul controlled the devouring fire. They could get along well. But now that his human soul was gone, if he used his life soul to control it, the consequences would be unimaginable. Do I have to give up the devouring fire? Lin Feng frowned, feeling reluctant. In terms of attack power, the devouring fire was more powerful than the fire of rebirth. Now that it had reached the 60th level, the power of the devouring fire was fully displayed. How could he be willing to give up such a powerful force? But what could he do if he didn't give it up? In his mind, the appearance of the phoenix that he saw appeared abruptly. That resounding and resonant cry of the phoenix. The flames of rebirth and the flames of devouring fused together to form a perfect fusion, causing the aura and strength of the flames to be extremely shocking and increase by more than 100 times. Unfortunately, I don't have such control, Lin Feng thought. Every time he used the power of the magnetic explosion, he would be injured as a result. There were a few times when his life was in danger. There's no need to worry. Lei Meng smiled faintly. Although you've lost your human soul, there are more than 2 souls in your body. Lin Feng was startled, but he did not understand why. There were more than 2 souls in his body. Master meant that, Peng. Lin Feng's heart shook fiercely, and his eyes immediately widened. That's right. No wonder I've always felt a sense of familiarity. No wonder Master said that he had more than 2 souls. He had completely forgotten about it. Starry sky pupils. Lin Feng stared at his master, his eyes shining brightly. He was the existence of another life soul. Lei Meng nodded with a smile. Actually, there are many similarities between life spirits, and they can fuse very well. For example, if you have a pair of eyes, the left eye and the right eye can be separated, but they can also be used at the same time. Back then, you actually took the wrong path. Using your human soul to control the devouring flames wasn't a good choice. But at that time, it was probably a mistake. Lei Meng smiled faintly. It's not too late to correct it now. Your starry sky pupils have been asleep for a long time. It's time to awaken. When Lin Feng saw the faint smile in Lei Meng's eyes, his mind instantly became clear. His starry sky pupils had been asleep because of the injury. Now his master was helping him recover. Thank you, master. Lin Feng bowed. His master had always done things for him, and he would always remember this kindness. If he had the chance in the future, he would definitely repay his master. It's nothing. Let's go. I'll take you to a place. Lei Meng said slowly. Okay. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, but he was curious. Instantly, whoosh, a golden light shone in front of him. The golden light expanded rapidly, forming a golden ring. It grew from 1 meter to 10 meters, from 10 meters to 100 meters, and kept growing bigger. Buzz, 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 buzz. The golden ring was like a hollow sphere, and energy was gathering. The golden ring emitted an astonishing aura of power. Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile. This scene was very familiar. A spatial tunnel. Back then, he had used this spatial tunnel to enter the immortal wood continent. It had taken 300 days. I haven't seen Wing for a long time. It should be done fusing, right? Lin Feng smiled. Then, he stepped forward and entered the golden ring. Whoosh! His figure suddenly disappeared. White light shone, and spatial energy gathered. Lin Feng felt his eyes light up, and light reappeared. Floating in the air, he looked around calmly, feeling slightly surprised. This place has changed a lot. Lin Feng's eyes shone, because he had uprooted all the wood spirits on the immortal wood continent and slaughtered them. The dense wood spirit aura was now gone, and it was replaced by the faint roars of beasts. They came from the giant beasts, and he could feel them from afar. My senses are so clear. So the changes in the body can also affect the human soul. Lin Feng was surprised, but then he smiled. That's right. After all, there will be changes after fusing. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. His body moved lightly. Lin Feng was shocked. What a fast speed, what a flexible body. I don't even need to slow down when changing directions at full speed. The toughness and flexibility of the body are amazing. Lin Feng's eyes shone, and he felt that it was unbelievable. Boom, boom. He punched fiercely. It was as fast as light, but it was extremely powerful. The air was compressed, and it felt like space was being torn apart. Lin Feng's face was full of surprise. My strength and fist speed have increased by dozens of times. And this is based on the fact that I haven't familiarized myself with my body yet. This body is really strong. Lin Feng was extremely surprised. The strength of his body shocked even himself. Compared to his original body, it was on a completely different level. One was a small mountain village, and the other was a big city. With a thought, lightning appeared in his hand, and it looked ferocious. My constellation sensing has also improved greatly. However, compared to the improvement of my body, the improvement is still a little small. Lin Feng nodded. He understood that although the constellation sensing was related to many aspects, it ultimately depended on the human soul. However, as long as he completed the inheritance of blood, everything would change. Wait, Lin Feng was stunned. That's strange. The last time I was here, there was no astral power. Why is there astral power this time? And the spiritual energy is so dense. After pondering for a while, Lin Feng looked at the immortal wood continent, where the giant beasts were surging. He smiled casually. I'm afraid it's also Master's masterpiece. He can even change the environment. Master's really unfathomable. He was already numb to his master's strength. He felt that his master was even more powerful than Wu Ming and the starry sky experts of the Southern Cross constellation. It's also my fortune. Why am I thinking so much? Lin Feng smiled valiantly. I wonder how he is. I haven't seen him for a year. He missed his good brother who had gone through life and death with him. Like a bright shooting star, Lin Feng disappeared in an instant. Whoosh! Lin Feng was extremely fast. Although he was flying in the air, he could still control his body freely. Soon, he was close to the place where he fought with the immortal wood continent's king. It was the center of the immortal wood continent. I'm almost there, Lin Feng muttered softly. Sensing the aura, he could faintly sense a different aura. It contained a powerful energy, and it seemed familiar. In an instant, sizzle. A spatial crack appeared in front of him. Oh! Lin Feng's gaze changed. His figure, which was flying at full speed, unexpectedly changed his position. There was no difference between flying in the air and on land. His control of his body had reached an astonishing level. However, just as he changed his position, another huge spatial crack appeared in front of him. Like a black hole, the suction force was abnormally shocking. However, Lin Feng's reaction was also extremely fast. Swish! Lightning flashed as Lin Feng pierced through rapidly. No matter how strong the suction force of the spatial crack was, it couldn't stop the powerful constellation power. Whoosh! 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 Constantly changing his speed, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. One spatial crack after another was thrown to the back of his mind. In front of him, a big tree, which was flashing with red and green light, was swaying vigorously. It seemed to be enjoying itself and was rather proud. His eyes lit up, and Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile. In an instant, boom! Starlight bloomed, and the rich constellation power gathered in his hand. The power was released to the extreme. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. His speed exploded, and he ignored the shocking spatial crack as he blasted towards the big tree. His aura covered the sky and covered the earth. Instantly, the big tree's branches danced, and it was extremely shocking. Stop! 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 It's me, boss! A panicked voice suddenly flashed, and the dancing branches were directly torn to pieces by the terrifying lightning, which scared Wing half to death. The red and green light kept flashing, and Wing's expression was extremely panicked. He almost shouted for help. Boom! The lightning roared. Lin Feng's figure landed in front of Wing, and he immediately laughed loudly. Look at you, still so cowardly. Lin Feng laughed casually. After a long separation, and hearing Wing's voice and seeing him in high spirits, Lin Feng was happy for him from the bottom of his heart. It was obvious that Wing had completely merged with the coiled wood origin seed. He had been reborn. Hee boss, you're getting stronger and stronger, Wing laughed. Stop flattering me, Lin Feng said casually. How is it, can we leave? He had come here to pick up Wing and leave. He was about to enter the unfamiliar land of the 9 provinces, and having an extra helper was only beneficial. Of course, boss. I just merged with the coiled wood origin seed not long ago. The energy left behind by this old guy is really powerful, as expected of the top bloodline of the wood spirits. Wing clicked his tongue. Although I haven't broken through to the Star Lord level, my strength has increased by at least 10 times. Lin Feng nodded. This time, Wing wasn't exaggerating. Controlling the power of space and using the spatial crack, Wing's move was very similar to that of the coiled wood origin seed. It was as if he had absorbed the phoenix blood, a complete transformation. He hadn't spent this year in vain. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Just as he was about to leave with Wing, suddenly, there was a sudden change. Last 2 chapters in a row. Chapter 735. Wah! Lightning flashed. A familiar aura suddenly descended. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he looked around in surprise. At this moment, lightning gathered and formed a huge circle that was extremely bright. Master! Lin Feng called out softly. This extremely familiar energy was his master Lei Ming. Instantly, zzz, the space trembled. With a dazzling luster, Lei Ming suddenly appeared in midair, his eyes sparkling. Seeing his master appear, Lin Feng was not surprised, but he had many questions. He did not know why his master came. Just now, his master said that he would bring him to a place which was the immortal wood continent. Could there be a connection? Greetings, senior, Wing said respectfully, using the wood spirit's etiquette to show his respect. No need to be so courteous. Lei Ming's voice was calm. Although you and I do not have any interactions, your master and I are fated to be master and disciple. If I can help, I will. Wing was pleasantly surprised, but he did not dare to interrupt. My disciple is fated to have you under his protection as well. Lei Ming spoke slowly. In a split second, a bright white pearl floated in midair, sparkling and translucent with powerful energy. This is the soul of Dragonfly Constellation's superstar martial artist, Wu Ming. Refine and absorb it, and one day you will become a superstar martial artist. His voice was calm, but both Wing and Lin Feng were stunned. What did he mean by will become a superstar martial artist? That was too shocking. Say, senior, You're not joking, right? Wing stuttered. That's right. Master, what's going on? Lin Feng raised his head and looked at his master in surprise. Wu Ming's soul should be the last thing in the body that he had fused with. At that time, he suddenly disappeared. Now, it seemed that he was subdued by his master. I see. Lin Feng nodded. After listening to his master's explanation, he finally understood. In Wu Ming's soul, it recorded the path that Wu Ming took to become a superstar martial artist. If Wing absorbed and refined Wu Ming's soul, he only needed to cultivate diligently, and his strength would steadily increase. There would definitely not be any bottlenecks. As long as he had enough strength, he would be able to increase his level. The only flaw was, it would be difficult for his soul to develop any further. Naturally, there would not be any problems with the spirit itself, but just like him, the Ursa Major constellation and the Phoenix constellation could only accommodate one of them. Once Wing absorbed Wu Ming's soul, it meant that he could only walk the same path as Wu Ming. It was like flipping open a book that he had already read and reading it again. Not more, not less. Wing's upper limit was this book. No wonder Master didn't let me absorb it. Lin Feng thought to himself. As long as Wu Qi's soul hadn't reached the Star Lord rank, his body would be able to absorb it. His main body could also absorb it, but after absorbing it, it would no longer be fated with the Phoenix natal constellation. It would be replaced by the Dragonfly constellation. After that, he continued to cultivate, walking along the path that Wu Zhu had taken until he reached the end of the path that Wu Zhu had taken. In the future, it would be difficult for him to advance any further. Think about it carefully. Do you want to absorb it or not? Lei Ming looked at Yi, his voice flat. Falling into deep thought, Wing clearly found it extremely difficult to make a choice. Lin Feng just looked at him quietly. Although Wing was his contracted spirit creature, he had never treated him as a subordinate or servant, but as a friend and brother. He needed to make his own decision on this matter. After a long time, Senior, can I ask you a question? Wing asked. Lei Ming looked at Wing. Ask away. Wing said slowly, I want to know, after fusing with the Pantherwood origin seed, under normal circumstances, what level of strength can I reach? Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he nodded lightly. Wing's question might be very straightforward and realistic, but it was a smart question. Wood spirits and humans are different. In the Douling world, wood spirits' cultivation is harder than humans. Lei Ming's voice was calm. According to normal cultivation, your upper limit is the Saint rank, and the chances of you becoming a Saint King rank is less than 1 in 10,000. As for becoming a Star Lord, Lei Ming smiled faintly, shaking his head. He didn't answer, but the answer was obvious. Senior, thank you for telling me so honestly. Wing said gratefully, without any unnaturalness, and without any hesitation. He said, I am willing to fuse with Wu Ming's soul. Please help me, Senior. This junior will be eternally grateful. Lei Ming nodded lightly. Correct choice. Then, lightning flashed, and Lei Ming's eyes shone brightly. In a split second, the milky white pearl emitted a bright and resplendent light and flew straight to Wing. The two energies instantly merged. Looking at the scene before him, Lin Feng smiled faintly. Wing's choice was indeed, as his master had said, very smart. The Douling world was so big, so many monstrous geniuses wanted to become a Star Lord, but had no way out. Perhaps after fusing with Wu Ming's soul, his upper limit might not be able to increase, but who knew what the future held? Right now, he had a 100% chance of becoming a Star Lord. Even if his master didn't say it, he knew very well how precious Wu Ming's soul was. That was the soul of a Star Lord, and in perfect condition. Time passed slowly. Lin Feng waited patiently. As the lightning gradually weakened, the energy dissipated, and the fusion was coming to an end. Just like when he devoured the little heavenly dog soul. The process wasn't complicated, although it was extremely dangerous. After all, Wing's strength was far inferior to Wu Ming's soul, but with his master around, there wouldn't be any problems. Soon, whoosh, the light receded. Wing's figure slowly disappeared before him, and Lin Feng trembled slightly. A familiar feeling came, and Wing returned to his body, the fiery celestial body in the Yang Fate star plate. Just like before. Smiling, Lin Feng looked at Lei Meng, nodded, and said, "Thank you, Master. With one more helper, there's less danger. I saw that he was loyal, so I gave him a hand." Lei Meng's eyes sparkled. "A man won't become a talent without grinding. Be careful when you go to the land of the 9 states. This is all I can help you with." "Master you," Lin Feng sneered. "Let's go," Lei Meng said indifferently. Lightning flashed, and in an instant, intense golden light condensed. A spatial passage appeared in a flash. Lei Meng's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Although Lin Feng was full of questions, he followed closely behind. 100 days later. "Go back," Lei Meng said calmly. "Yes, Master." Lin Feng knelt on one knee, cupped his hands, and said gratefully, "Thank you for your careful guidance, Master." His eyes flickered with a different luster, as if they were the eyes of 2 different people. At this moment, Lin Feng's body looked much thinner. He had lost some of his strength, but he was more elegant and valiant. His eyes were especially sparkling. The starry sky pupils had finally awakened. Although his body had lost a human soul, he had gained a life soul. It was hard to tell which was better, but one thing was certain. The strength of a heavenly god was stronger. "Is 3 days enough?" Lei Meng asked indifferently. "Yes, Master." Lin Feng raised his head. Once the inheritance of blood was activated, the Star of Lightning Realm would close. The Yinling Imperial Mansion was part of the Star of Lightning Realm, so it would naturally close. Even the exchange of points would stop. After leaving the Yinling Imperial Mansion, Lin Feng returned to the Fierce Yin sect. 3 days was neither short nor long. 3 9-star immortal fruits, 13 8-star immortal fruits, 77 7-star immortal fruits, and 510 6-star immortal fruits. Lin Fengqing counted the items in Huai's violet ring, placing them one by one on the ground. Ji Jin, Ji Russian, Zhu Ling, and the others all stared dumbstruck. "This is the star spring water. The star stones and star crystals are all here." Lin Feng took out a pile of strangely shaped star stones and star crystals and piled them up like a mountain. These were rare treasures in the Yinling Imperial Mansion, but there were many in the Purple Star Realm. Although it was only 100 days, he had gained a lot. "There's more," Lin Feng murmured. "Feng, where did you get so many treasures?" Ji Jin's chest heaved. He was shocked. This time, Lin Feng not only brought back the 9-star immortal fruits to heal his injuries, but also countless treasures. Most of them could not be bought in the Yinling Imperial Mansion, even if one had the money. "Junior brother, am I dreaming?" Ji Russian was still in a daze. As the sect master, with so many treasures, the future of the Fierce Yin sect could be said to be limitless. "No way, junior brother. We haven't seen each other for a few days, and you've given us such a big surprise." Zhu Ling's eyes shone in disbelief. The 3 of them looked at each other, and Lin Feng smiled calmly. There were countless reluctance in his heart, but it was time to say goodbye. "Master, eldest senior brother, second senior brother, I'm leaving," Lin Feng said softly. The atmosphere was melancholy. But all good things must come to an end. I've guessed it. This is good news." Zhu Ling smiled valiantly and patted Lin Feng's shoulder. "Master, Ji Xiao, and I are also preparing to leave. Although we're in different continents, at least we're all in the southern region. We'll still have a chance to meet again in the future." "Yes, Feng Ji Jin said with a smile. "There will be a time when we meet again. If there's a chance, come to the great Yin continent." "Yes, Master, senior brother." Lin Feng smiled. When everyone was together, they were like family and had a deep relationship. They were indeed reluctant to part with each other, but this was the path of a cultivator. It was a lonely path of cultivation. It's good that all of you are gone. I'll be the only one left in the future." Ji Russian smiled bitterly inside. His appearance and expression instantly caused everyone to burst into laughter, and the oppressive atmosphere was swept away. They opened the wine bottles, raised their cups, and drank to their heart's content. Lin Feng left the fierce Yin sect. He did not make any fanfare, nor did he announce it. He just left silently. After informing everyone that the Yinling Imperial Mansion would be closed in 3 days and donating the treasures he obtained in the Purple Star Realm to the sect, Lin Feng no longer had any worries. Although the treasures were precious, they were useless to him now. What he really could not bear to part with were the human heart and the emotions. Who was heartless? Only those who had flesh and blood were humans. After leaving the fierce Yin sect, Lin Feng returned to the Green Smoke City and visited the old places. He went to the Caifei sect to bid farewell to Pei Hong, Pei Qing, Xiao Lu, and other friends. He went to the Winyang Valley to reunite with Wei Hai, Qi Yang, Qi Yu, and other friends. Everything here was filled with his own memories. He recorded every detail of his Douling world. I really can't bear to part with them. Lin Feng smiled. There's a lot of melancholy and reluctance in his eyes. Just like when he left the Tianwu continent, it was unforgettable because of the beautiful memories and the emotions. However, he still had a long way to go. The burden on his shoulders was still very heavy. Goodbye, Yinling Imperial Mansion, Lin Feng murmured softly. Then, his figure slowly disappeared. The second chapter, Yinling Imperial Mansion, has ended. The third chapter, The Land of the 9 Provinces, will be open tomorrow. Chapter 736. In the huge city, the luster of all kinds of metals shone brightly. Huge buildings towered into the clouds, engraved with all kinds of engravings, mysterious and powerful. The spirit Qi in the air was extremely dense. Although the crowd could be seen everywhere, densely packed like ants, it was in an orderly manner. On the ground, in the air, and in the sky, there were martial artists. Galaxy level, and Star-Lord levels were too common here. All kinds of floating vehicles were flying in the sky, luxurious and beautiful. All sorts of familiar figures were bustling about. They were all humans as far as the eye could see. At this time, in the middle of the road, a young man in black clothes was looking around with sparkling eyes. His eyes were full of surprise and sparkling. His figure was not tall or strong, but revealed a faint fiery aura and a kind of oppressive pressure. Lin Feng, Shiluo County, Lin Feng murmured softly. Looking around, his heart was full of surprise. It felt very fresh and different. It was completely different from Yinling Prefecture. Is this my hometown, the place where I was born? Lin Feng was full of emotions. Although he had never been here, he had an indescribable feeling, as if he had returned to his hometown, where his heart was at peace. He had finally returned. Shiluo County, Vermilion Bird Continent, Southern Region. Lin Feng nodded. Father, I'm here. Lin Feng was deeply moved as he thought about it. From Tianwu Continent to 100 Falls, and then to Yinling Prefecture, he had finally come here. This was the territory of real humans. Only humans existed. Clenching his fists, Lin Feng felt a little distracted, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Suddenly, hearty laughter suddenly sounded. You're finally here, brother Lin Feng. Without looking back, Lin Feng knew who it was. His eyes flickered, and a smile appeared on his face. Patriarch Wan, long time no see. Tizke, what Patriarch Wan? Wan Macho curled his lips and said with a bitter smile, Don't talk nonsense. This is the land of the 9 provinces. People will laugh their heads off if they hear this. Which family leader is as weak as me? Then she pointed at the sky and said, Look, how many Star Lords are there? I can't compare to any of them. Lin Feng smiled. He had noticed that there were indeed a lot of cosmic lords there. He and Wan Macho were invincible in Yinling Prefecture, but here, very mediocre. I've been waiting for you for 3 days. Wan Macho shrugged. I thought you stood me up and wouldn't come. I'm sorry, Brother Wan. Lin Feng smiled apologetically. That day, he and Wan Macho had agreed to meet at the Yinling Royal Mansion. Although he didn't set a specific time, he felt a little embarrassed to have Wan Macho wait for him for 3 days. It doesn't matter. My lifespan is very long after I become a Star Lord. It's just boring to wait. Haha. One macho smiled. However, now that I've put down the burden of being the family leader, I don't have to carry a burden anymore. It's quite comfortable to be on my own. Lin Feng nodded. He could tell from Juan Macho's appearance that he had completely left the past behind. Just like he said, he was starting over. A warrior's lifespan was greatly extended after he became a Star Lord. Originally, the lifespan of a Star Sea State warrior was only 2,000 to 3,000 years. After reaching the Star Lord level and being baptized by the power of the constellations, their natal constellations would be awakened, which would greatly increase their lifespan. Even a level, one Star Lord would have a lifespan of 10,000 years. As their strength increased, their lifespan would be greatly increased. At the peak of the Star Lord level, the longest lifespan could even be 100,000 years. In comparison, the Star Sea State was much worse. Here, take this. Juan Macho handed over a finely made device. What's this? Lin Feng accepted it curiously. It was light in his hand, and there was a strange energy wave. He looked at it, only to discover that it was exactly the same as the one Juan Macho was wearing on his left hand. It was made of a delicate crystal and had a thin band. It looked familiar. A star crystal watch. Juan Macho introduced. It's powered by star crystals and can show you your current location. You won't get lost with it. Pausing for a moment, Juan Macho pressed a few buttons with a smile. Instantly, Lin Feng heard a sound in his head. It was from the star crystal watch in his hand. It's a communication function. Juan Macho raised his hand and smiled. The energy civilization of the 9 states is much more advanced than that of the government. Most of the energy devices here are powered by star crystals. Star crystals? Lin Feng was surprised. Star crystals contained astral power, which could be absorbed by the Star Sea State. Yes. Juan Macho nodded. Star Lords can make star crystals. It's not difficult, but it will take some time. Juan Macho smiled and pointed around. Look, there are many teleportation arrays, training devices, cultivation spaces, and even those floating cars. They're all powered by star crystals. An extremely advanced energy civilization. Lin Feng's eyes glittered. He nodded thoughtfully. He finally knew why this place felt familiar. It was similar to the Sky Martial continent in many ways. However, the civilization here was much more advanced. They're both energy civilizations. Is there any connection between the two? Lin Feng murmured to himself, but he didn't have an answer for now. Lin Feng put away his doubts and put on the star crystal watch. He smiled and felt as if he had returned to the Sky Martial continent. He was wearing a fluorescent compass back then. It's interesting, isn't it? Juan Macho's eyes flickered. Since the sorcerer tribe doesn't exist in the land of the 9 provinces, human warriors can do many things freely. Take this star crystal watch, for example. The powerful ones can even teleport to a fixed location. Of course, the teleportation point must exist. It's that powerful? Lin Feng was surprised. Wouldn't it mean that he carried a teleportation array with him? It was incredible. I can't afford it. Juan Macho shrugged and said helplessly, this star crystal watch costs 10 million soul spirit coins. So expensive? Lin Feng frowned. Brother Juan, I'll give you the money. Okay, stop being so polite. Juan Macho held Lin Feng's hand and said indifferently, I don't care about 10 million soul spirit coins. You and I got to know each other in the Yinling Prefecture. Now that we have no relatives in the Vermilion Bird Continent, we should help each other. Lin Feng looked at Juan Macho. His eyes flashed, and he nodded with a smile. Okay, I won't stand on ceremony. 10 million soul spirit coins was not a big number for him or Juan Macho. The Yinling Prefecture had a deep foundation. As the patriarch, Juan Macho had saved a lot of money. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. Naturally, he should make plans for himself. In this strange place, having more friends was more useful than anything else. Otherwise, Juan Macho wouldn't have spent 30 million points to come to the Vermilion Bird Continent. The points in the Yinling Prefecture were 10 million points in the Great Yin Prefecture and 20 million points in the Yellow Crane Prefecture. To Juan Macho, the Vermilion Bird Continent and the Yellow Crane Prefecture were no different. He spent 10 million points because he was here. That's more like a man. Juan Macho smiled and patted Lin Feng's shoulder. Let's go. I'll take you to see Shirluo Prefecture. Okay. Lin Feng smiled. The human territory is divided into 9 regions. We are in the southern region. There are 9 continents in the southern region. Each continent is overseen by a saint-level powerhouse. The saint-level powerhouse of the Vermilion Bird Continent is King Yin. Along the way, Juan Macho spoke with assurance. His eyes were shining. Lin Feng kept nodding. It was very useful for him to absorb this knowledge. A saint-level warrior, Flame King. Lin Feng remembered this in his heart and was also shocked. Each continent was overseen by a saint-level powerhouse. There were 9 continents in the southern region alone. In other words, there were 9 saint-level powerhouses and the 9 regions added together. Looking at Lin Feng, Juan Macho suddenly smiled. Do you think there are many saint-level powerhouses? That's right. The 9 domains added up to 81. Lin Feng nodded, his eyes shining brightly. Juan Macho smiled. As far as I know, there are far more than 81. However, Juan Macho paused and shook his head. If you knew how many human martial artists there are, you wouldn't think so. The 9 continents are not the Yinling Prefecture. The Shirluo Prefecture alone is as large as tens of thousands of Yinling prefectures. The Vermilion Bird Continent has 9 prefectures. You can imagine how large it is and how many human martial artists there are. Furthermore, this is merely a single continent. In the southern region alone, there are 9 continents. When the voice entered Lin Feng's ears, he nodded. A prefecture was as large as tens of thousands of Yinling prefectures. How shocking. This prefecture is different from the other prefectures. The prefectures in the 9 continents are different from those in the Tianwu continent. Lin Feng thought. The prefectures in the Tianwu continent were probably less than 1/10,000th of the Yinling prefecture, but the prefectures in the 9 continents were incomparably vast. Because they are large, there are many human martial artists. Duo once said that the number of humans in the Douling world exceeds 1 ring. 100 million was 1 capital, and 1 trillion of the capital was equivalent to 1 fern. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. His heart was completely clear. Because the population was large, there were so many saint-level powerhouses. However, the aptitude of a human martial artist and the probability of becoming a saint were not ideal. With our speed, it will take us more than 100 days to cross the entire Shirluo Prefecture. Juan Macho smiled valiantly and stopped. He pointed to the place where the white light shone. To save time, the transportation array is very important. Let's go. Looking at the transportation array in front of him, Lin Feng smiled faintly. It felt as if he had returned to the Tianwu continent. The longing in his heart grew. He felt more and more that there was a great connection between the two. Since we're here, let's take it easy. Let's familiarize ourselves with the environment first, then enter the Lin clan. It seems that I'm going to settle down here. With a smile, Lin Feng followed Juan Macho. They entered the transportation array. First update. Chapter 737. The Xiaoxiang restaurant was a bustling restaurant. Lin Feng and Juan Macho raised their glasses and drank. They were in a good mood. Meeting an old friend in a foreign land, in this unfamiliar place, there was no doubt that there was less sorrow and more familiarity. I can't enter the best restaurant in Shirluo Prefecture. Brother Lin, you'll have to make do here. Juan Macho smiled valiantly and drained his glass. Only after coming here did I realize how big the world is. I remember my days in Yinling Prefecture. Tisk, Brother Juan, I heard that you need an identity card here? Lin Feng asked softly. He had heard Senior Sima mention it when he first entered Fierce Yin School. In the 9 states, identity cards were very important. Yes. Light flashed in Juan Macho's hand, and a diamond-shaped badge engraved with her name appeared on the table. Identity badges are universal in the entire southern region. They are divided into limestone citizen, rough iron citizen, bronze citizen, silver citizen, gold citizen, and so on. I'm a bronze citizen. Oh, Lin Feng picked up the diamond-shaped token and looked at it. Although it was a bronze citizen, it wasn't made of bronze. It emitted a faint energy aura, so it shouldn't be an ordinary item. I'll take you to get one later, brother Lin, Juan Macho said. Juan Macho said, "You're a Star Lord, so you can become a bronze citizen just like me. This thing is very important in the Vermilion Bird Continent. There are many restrictions, such as buying a house, entering a cultivation space, and even joining various forces." I see. Lin Feng nodded. No wonder Juan Macho said he couldn't enter the best restaurant in Shirluo Prefecture. It must be because of the restriction of identity. Then how can I become a silver citizen? Lin Feng asked casually. There are many ways, such as donating money, increasing contribution points, joining a force, and taking an important position, winning a place in a competition, leading a field, and so on. Juan Macho poured a glass of wine, raised it, and smiled. But the simplest way is to break through and become a Star Sector level expert. Star-Lord level warriors are common in the Vermilion Bird Continent and even in Shirluo County, but Star Domain level warriors begin to gain status. But it's not that easy. Juan Macho shrugged and sighed. Even though he was hailed as a rare prodigy, he wasn't confident of reaching the cosmic realm state. You should have more hope than me, Brother Lin, Juan Macho said with a smile. Me too. Lin Feng smiled faintly. However, it wasn't that easy to advance from the Cosmic Lord level to the Cosmic Realm level. Right now, what he wanted to do the most was to enter the Lin clan and investigate his background. He wanted to find out what had happened that day. Why had his father brought him and his little brother to the Tianmu continent with such heavy injuries? Why had his father refused to return to the family? Why had his father sent him to Shirluo County to seek refuge with his uncle, Lin Jing? Question marks had been lingering in his heart for a long time. He really wanted to know the answer. That's right, Brother Juan. Do you have any news about the Lin clan that I asked you to help me inquire about? Of course, I haven't been wandering around these days. Juan Macho smiled. Besides, the Lin clan is quite famous in Shirluo County. Although they aren't very strong, they have a lot of connections and are one of the top craftsman families. A craftsman family. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He had heard his father mention that the family members were very good at crafting. Now, it seemed that they were indeed quite famous. Brother Juan, do you know Lin Jing? Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he asked hastily. Lin Jing? Juan Macho shook his head. I don't know. I only know that the head of the Lin clan is Lin Jun. The most famous member of the Lin clan is Lin Yin, one of the top craftsmen in Shirluo County. He ranked 10th in the last Vermilion Bird Continent Craftsman competition. It can be said that he's very famous. Lin Jun, the head of the Lin clan, the 10th ranked craftsman in the Vermilion Bird Continent, Lin Yin. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled as he memorized these two names. Oh, by the way, there are also the rising stars, Lin Fan and Lin Yama. Juan Macho had just opened his mouth when he was interrupted by a loud shout from outside. Extra, extra! The Lin clan is recruiting apprentice craftsmen. There are only 10,000 spots. First come, first served. There's a chance to receive guidance from Master Lin Yin. It's a rare opportunity. Everyone go. Boom! In an instant, there was a heated discussion. Wow, apprentice craftsman? Is that true? Since the news is out, it must be true. I guess the Lin clan wants to expand their influence and surpass the Pang family and the Meng family. Nonsense. Master Lin Yin ranked 10th in the last competition. In Shirluo County, he's already on par with the Meng family in terms of craftsman ranking. What's there to surpass? Hurry, there are only 10,000 spots. That's right. It's a once-in-a-century opportunity. The last time the three major craftsman families took in apprentices was hundreds of years ago. Damn, wait for me. The Xiaoxiang restaurant was in chaos. Everyone was extremely excited. Their faces were glowing with excitement. It was extremely sensational. Lin Feng looked at Juan Macho in surprise, a little confused. Was it so exciting for a craftsman family to take in apprentices? Don't look at me. I just got here a few months earlier than you. Juan Macho looked around and clicked his tongue. But in the Vermilion Bird Continent, no, in the entire southern region, and even in the human race, craftsmen, inscriptionists, alchemists, and star talisman masters are all very famous. Craftsmen, in particular, are ranked first among the four. What do the witches value the most about humans? Soul weapons. Top craftsmen can even be treated as honored guests by the witches on the land of the fighting spirit world. Juan Macho said slowly. Lin Feng kept nodding. Insignificant humans could be treated as honored guests by the powerful witches. What an honor. No wonder craftsmen were so famous. Wait. Lin Feng's eyes glittered. The Lin clan is so big. It's not easy for me to find Uncle Lin Jing. There are probably many people with the same name. Besides, the Lin clan is quite famous in Sherluo County. If I rashly ask to see Uncle Lin Jing, I'll most likely be rejected. Besides, Father specifically asked me to find Uncle Lin Jing in the letter. There must be a big secret. Otherwise, why would he go through so much trouble? Lin Feng thought to himself. He had too many questions about his origins and his father's strange actions. If his father had a good relationship with the clan, why didn't he mention the Lin clan in the letter? Moreover, at the end of the letter, there was the most important sentence. Remember, he's the only person you can trust. In other words, the other members of the Lin clan could not be trusted. What did that mean? Thinking of how his father brought him and his younger brother to the Timu continent with serious injuries, there was a big connection. He just didn't know it. His heart was beating fast. Lin Feng's eyes slowly changed. My identity must be kept a secret. After all, my strength is too weak here. If I'm not careful, I'll be doomed eternally. That was then, and this was now. He was no longer the Lin Feng who could run amok in the Yanling Prefecture. Having made up his mind, Lin Feng looked up at Juan Macho and said slowly, Brother Juan, what are the requirements to become an apprentice craftsman? Huh? Juan Macho was stunned. There was a sea of people. There were at least 1 million warriors, most of whom were Star River and Star Sea level. There were also many Star Lords. The most shocking thing was, there are even Star Sector level warriors. Lin Feng couldn't believe it. He didn't sense the presence of Star Sector level warriors. Instead, there were thousands of names flashing on the huge light screen. The people around him were pointing at him, and he could hear them clearly. Haha, Brother Lin, don't underestimate being a craftsman. It's also a path to becoming a saint, Juan Macho said casually. It's not just fame and fortune, but also strength. Star Sector level warriors are naturally willing. However, not many people are willing to condescend in such a way. Juan Macho smiled faintly, his expression calm. He wasn't interested in being a craftsman, not to mention that he didn't meet the requirements. Lin Feng nodded with a faint smile. Indeed, it was better to become a craftsman's apprentice. Right now, he was just an apprentice. In other words, he was just doing odd jobs. It was too difficult for a Star Sector level warrior to do odd jobs, but also prove the status of craftsman in the Vermilion Bird Continent. Okay, my mission is complete. I'm afraid the test will take a while. I'll take my leave first, Juan Macho said with a smile. Sorry to trouble you, Brother Juan, Lin Feng said with a smile. Not only had Juan Macho brought him around Sherluo County, but he had also prepared an identity card for him. He was very grateful to Juan Macho. Although there's not much hope, Juan Macho frowned, then blinked. I still wish you success. Then, he pointed at the star crystal watch on his left hand and nodded. Send me a message when you're done. Okay, Lin Feng replied. Good luck. Juan Macho clenched his fists and left with a smile. Lin Feng heaved a long sigh of relief as he watched the figure gradually disappear. Although they were at odds with each other in the Yanling Prefecture due to their identities, friendship grew out of discord. The past was the past. Conflicts between forces were bound to happen. Even without Juan Macho, a war would still break out between the fierce Yin sect and the Yanling Prefecture. Moreover, he had killed many members of the Yanling Prefecture. Thanks. Lin Feng smiled. At this moment, the last bit of hatred he had for Juan Macho dissipated. He didn't have any relatives in the Vermilion Bird Continent. Juan Macho was straightforward and upright. He was indeed a friend worth making. But now, I hope I can be recruited as an apprentice and enter the Lin clan. Lin Feng's eyes burned. To him, this was his first step in the Vermilion Bird Continent. He couldn't afford to fail. Second update. Chapter 738. The number soon exceeded 10 million. More and more people were joining every second. Lin Feng looked at the number in his hand and smiled bitterly. Just as Wamacho said, there was still time to wait. What a sensation. Are refiners really that popular? Most of the warriors in the southern region have the 12 southern constellations as their natal constellations, and only 3 of them meet the requirements for refiners: Corona Australis, Phoenix Constellation, and Fornax Constellation. Only those 3 constellations can control real fire. Lin Feng murmured in disbelief. The number of people who had exceeded 10 million was simply too shocking. How could there be so many people who met the requirements in just one county? Lin Feng looked up at the light screen and thought to himself. More than 1,000 of them had been accepted. Half of them were Star Lords, half were Star Ocean, and 1 was Star Domain. None of them were Star River. More than 1/3 of the people who had come to participate in the recruitment were Star River. In other words, they're just here to join the fun, Lin Feng thought. There are still many warriors who don't know the requirements. In total, there are less than half of the people who are actually competing with each other. The name of an armament master was too resounding. Naturally, many people came to participate with a fluke mentality. They didn't care if they had the ability or not. They wouldn't lose anything even if they didn't pass. However, it's still quite difficult, Lin Feng thought. Even if the number was halved, there would still be 5 million people. However, only 10,000 were accepted. He felt a bit pressured. They should only look at the basic requirements. They won't look at refining skills. Even if there are more people, my chances should still be high. Lin Feng looked ahead and was relieved. The speed of elimination was very fast. There was no telling how long it would take to screen them one by one. It would probably be a general choice. After all, he was a Star Lord and controlled the fire of rebirth. He would definitely meet the requirements. As long as his refining skills weren't tested, his chances of winning were more than 80%. Lin Feng's eyes glittered with confidence. The long line of people kept moving forward, and the numbers on the light screen flashed quickly. One martial artist after another entered, and Lin Feng finally saw the test in front of him. It was an enormous door of flames. Hundreds of warriors surged forward, either entering or being blocked outside. The raging flames formed the first line of defense. Countless martial artists were blocked outside the flaming door. Failure again. Less than 1/10 of them successfully entered. The first hurdle was already extremely difficult to pass. Very quickly, it was his turn. At this moment, the number of martial artists who had entered had already exceeded 3,000. Wah! The number plate in his hand flashed gently. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he saw his serial number on the huge screen. He couldn't feel any heat from the raging flames in front of him. He looked at the other warriors around him and clenched his teeth. His star power was completely unleashed, as if he was fighting an enemy with all his might. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He took a step forward, and the terrifying flame in front of him automatically opened up a path for him. Swoosh! Lin Feng easily stepped over it. There was an uproar behind him. Lin Feng smiled calmly. He had passed the first stage. In the Lin clan, Zhong. A calm voice came. The middle-aged man called Zhong raised his head hastily and was extremely surprised. Master, why are you here? The person who came was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. He was in high spirits and his eyes were bright. There seemed to be a layer of flames around his body. He was quite powerful. He was the most outstanding blacksmith of the Lin clan. He was ranked 10th in the previous blacksmith competition of the Vermilion Bird Continent. Lin Yin. It's okay. You do what you need to do, Lin Yin said with a kind smile. Oh, okay. Master, please take a seat. Lin Zhong pulled out a chair and was extremely respectful. He was indeed very busy. Not only was he watching the apprentice recruitment process, but he was also personally selecting the candidates. As Lin Yan's eldest disciple, Lin Zhong was fully in charge of the apprentice recruitment. Lin Yan sat down slowly and asked with narrowed eyes, "How is it? Are there any good candidates?" "There are a few," Lin Zhong replied with a smile. Lin Zhong smiled and replied, "This time, there is a star sector-level Southern Crown constellation cultivator joining us." And, hearing his master's question, Lin Zhong began to explain everything in detail, his mouth flowing like a river. Indeed, it was rare for Shirluo Prefecture to recruit blacksmith apprentices. Naturally, there were many good candidates. Lin Yan nodded as he listened. He seemed quite satisfied. "However, Master, none of these apprentices have top-notch aptitudes." Lin Zhong sighed softly. Lin Yan stroked his long beard and said, "It's not easy to find top-notch aptitudes. Even in the entire Lin clan, there are no more than 2 of them." After a pause, Lin Yan's eyes sparkled. He said slowly, "Moreover, it's enough to teach ordinary blacksmithing techniques." Lin Zhong nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, Master. The Lin clan's truly precious blacksmithing techniques were passed down in the same vein. How could it be passed down to outsiders? We're making an exception this time because we want to surpass the Meng clan and establish our Lin clan's position in Shirluo Prefecture." Lin Yan nodded. "As long as half of these 10,000 apprentices are successful, we'll be able to blacksmith in large quantities. Then, we'll be able to compete for the market." "You're wise, Master." Lin Zhong was sincerely convinced. He was about to speak when suddenly, beep, 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 the star crystal watch on his left hand flashed. "Speak." Lin Zhong pressed a button. "A Master, just now, a martial artist got full marks in the first round of the fire affinity test." There was a hint of excitement in the flustered voice. Lin Zhong and Lin Yan's expressions changed. They looked at each other in shock. "Number?" Lin Zhong shouted. "Master, it's between 790-0033 and 790-0533. The voice sounded a little anxious. "Pa!" Lin Zhong instantly closed the star crystal watch. Sitting back in his chair, Lin Zhong's expression was solemn. His fingers moved as if they were flying. He skillfully operated the machine and replayed the scene from just now. Beside him, Lin Yan stared at the big screen with his hands behind his back. His eyes were shining. For blacksmiths, fire affinity was very important. In the entire Lin clan, there were only 3 people who got full marks in the fire affinity test. Among them was Lin Yan himself. "Master, it's him." Lin Zhong's gaze was focused as he pointed forward. Lin Yan nodded and stared at the light screen. At this moment, the image was replaying the scene of Lin Feng stepping through the flames. The raging flames didn't resist at all. They simply opened up a path for Lin Feng to walk through. It was very strange. He's very young. Lin Yan's eyes were shining. The younger the person, the more likely they were to be molded. "Master, I'll immediately." Lin Zhong stood up, pleasantly surprised. "What's the hurry?" Lin Yan said indifferently. His expression was as calm as a clear lake. "Switch the image to the second round. I want to see how good his control over fires." "Yes, Master." Lin Zhong scratched his head and sat down. The number of people has indeed decreased. Less than 1 in 10 can pass the first round. The elimination rate is very high. Lin Feng nodded and looked forward. At this moment, the human dragon had shrunk a lot. It didn't feel crowded anymore. The names on the huge light screen kept increasing. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 4,000 names. Lin Feng frowned slightly. At this moment, he wasn't worried about not passing the round. Instead, he was worried that he wouldn't make it in time for the 10,000 spots. Looking at the human dragon ahead, Lin Feng felt helpless. However, he couldn't be anxious. Time passed little by little. The long line kept shrinking. Lin Feng's eyes were shining. The test content in front was gradually visible. It was a light pillar that looked like an energy machine. All the warriors put their hands at the bottom of the light pillar. The flames suddenly gathered. The red light pillar rose straight up. There was a black area at the top, which was the symbol. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he quickly understood the content of the test. It was very simple and direct. It's a test of instantaneous flame control, Lin Feng thought. The intensity of each flame is different. The endurance of the light pillar is unknown. Moreover, not only must the flame reach the black area, it must also be done in a very short time. Lin Feng nodded. The time should be within 1 second. The flame must not pass the black area. Otherwise, one would be eliminated. The light pillar was thin and long, but the black area was very short. Similarly, less than 1 in 10 warriors were eliminated in this round. It was even stricter than before. Lin Feng sighed inwardly as he watched the cultivators anxiously fail one after another. The more nervous they were, the worse it was. It's not just about flame control. There's also psychology. Lin Feng nodded. There was only one chance. Just like refining, the psychological requirements were very strict. There could not be the slightest mistake. Even if one did not sleep for several days and nights, every step had to be taken seriously. One mistake, and the whole game would be lost. Refining weapons was not an easy task. Soon, as the number plate in his hand flashed, it was Lin Feng's turn. The 9 provinces are indeed extraordinary. The level of energy civilization is really high, Lin Feng thought. Looking at the light pillar at a close distance, looking at the finely designed energy machine in front of him, Lin Feng was very impressed. He gently placed his right hand under the light pillar. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The flame of rebirth was instantly ignited. Almost instantly, Lin Feng's mind was clear. Bang! The flame rose rapidly. The speed was so fast that it reached the black area in the blink of an eye. It was not biased. Pah! A pleasant sound came from the light pillar. At this time, the passage in front suddenly opened. Sounds of envy and discussion could be heard. Lin Feng smiled. To him, this round was too easy. If it was Star Sea level, the control might be easier and more exquisite. Now that I have the power of the Phoenix constellation, I am not used to it. Thinking in his heart, Lin Feng clenched his right fist. The flame of rebirth was naturally easy to control, but he had not been in contact with the power of the Phoenix constellation for long. But it did not matter. At least his results were passable. I wonder what the third round is. Lin Feng was curious. He did not turn back and stepped into the passage. Third update. Chapter 739. What's his score? Lin Yan's eyes sparkled. 78 points. Lin Zhong said seriously. Lin Yan rested his chin on his hand and muttered to himself. Alas, what a pity for this full score of fire affinity. Lin Zhong sighed. The two add up to 178 points. Even if he gets full marks in the third test, he'll only get 278 points. He's not at the top level. Lin Zhong shook his head in regret. Lin Yan frowned. Strange. How can a full score of fire affinity be so bad at controlling fire? 78 points was actually not bad. Among the martial artists who had passed the second stage of the test, they were all above average. But in the eyes of a master craftsman like Lin Yan, it fell into the category of poor. But this little guy should have no problem passing the third test. Among the apprentices recruited this time, his score should be in the top 10. Lin Zhong nodded. Based on Lin Feng's performance in the first 2 tests, he could roughly estimate his score in the third test. Lin Yan nodded, his eyes still fixed on Lin Feng on the screen. He was a little interested. Master you? Lin Zhong asked in surprise. I want to see how his crafting foundation is. Lin Yan nodded slowly. Yes, master, Lin Zhong replied. The test continued. In the final test, the line had completely shrunk. The scene in front of him was even clearer, but Lin Feng's eyes widened, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. No way. The third test requires crafting? Looking into the distance, Lin Feng frowned. His original estimate was completely wrong. The first 2 tests were a selection, but the third test was the deciding factor. Lin Feng did not know that the Lin clan was recruiting apprentices this time to craft ordinary soul tools, and spirit treasures. Naturally, they had to test their crafting skills. These basic skills were not a secret. They could be learned everywhere in Shiluo County, but the quality of the foundation depended on time. But Lin Feng had never come into contact with them. It's all for naught. Looks like it's difficult to infiltrate the Lin clan as an apprentice. Sighing in his heart, Lin Feng casually looked ahead. A blue-clothed warrior picked up a piece of metal from the table. He raised his hands up and down, and flames instantly sprayed out. The warrior in blue focused his mind to the extreme. In the warrior's hand, the iron essence quickly changed shape. Slowly, little by little, it took the shape of a sword. Suddenly, dong! The crisp sound of a bell rang. The blue-clothed martial artist complexion turned ugly. The flames instantly disappeared. That piece of iron had yet to take the shape of a sword. There was not enough time. Failure. He looked to the other side. A robust man placed a strange piece of metal into the cauldron. With a shout, the robust man placed his hands on the walls of the cauldron, and his face turned red. Strong astral power accompanied the flames. As the seconds ticked by, just before the bell rang, the strong man yelled again. Dong! In a split second, a sword shot out from the cauldron. The body of the sword was the body of the sword, and the edge of the sword was the edge of the sword. It was smooth and neat, and the workmanship was quite good. Pass, the examiner said calmly. The robust man laughed heartily. He was overjoyed. Scene after scene appeared before his eyes. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he pursed his lips. The content of this final test is to refine the outer shell of a sword within 10 seconds. Lin Feng completely understood what Xiao Chun had seen. Refining with 2 hands, refining with 1 hand, refining with the help of a cauldron. All kinds of methods were used. It was like a performer. There were 18 different types of weapons, and to the examiners, no matter how or what method was used, they did not care. As long as the outer embryo of the sword could be completely refined, it would be considered a pass. Regardless of whether it was a black cat or a white cat, as long as it could catch mice, it was a good cat. It's the application of skills. Changes in the basic refining techniques. It's supplemented by the control of fire, time, and so on. Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he watched the warriors refine the outer embryo of the sword over and over again. He analyzed and learned, cramming at the last minute. There's definitely a chance. Their ability to control fire is far inferior to mine. What I lack is the execution of the basic refining techniques. Lin Feng muttered to himself. His eyes were fixed on a young man who was not much older than him. He had a black hedgehog head. At this moment, the young man was concentrating on refining a sword. His left hand was holding the bottom of a piece of silver, slowly melting it. His right hand was focused on sculpting the body of the sword. Flames sprayed out crazily. His movements were fast and skillful, as if he had practiced for a long time. Multitasking, it was easy for him to refine it. Compared to other martial artists, it was much faster and easier to refine. In a split second, in just 6 seconds, the young man completed the process of refining the sword. His speed and efficiency were excellent. The body of the sword was flawless. Pass. The examiner took the sword. He could tell whether it was good or bad with just a touch. Multitasking and the control of fire went hand in hand. This young man's refining techniques are obviously better than the others. Lin Feng nodded. He immediately closed his eyes and replayed the scene just now. It was extremely clear. He remembered every movement of the young man. For other people, it might be difficult, but he could do it. It's a pity that I can't test it. Lin Feng felt regretful. He was confident that he could grasp the young man's refining techniques after a few tests. Unfortunately, it was not realistic now. Knowing is one thing, doing is another. It will be my turn in the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. The success rate of my first refining is not bad. Lin Feng laughed bitterly. He felt helpless, but no matter what the probability was, he would try. It was better than giving up. He casually glanced at a man in black who was starting to refine not far away. Lin Feng stared at him with sparkling eyes. He watched from the beginning to the end until the man in black failed. Lin Feng sighed softly. Then, another woman in green took over. But she also failed. One after another. One every 10 seconds. The speed was extremely fast. One after another, they all failed. Watching attentively, Lin Feng fell into a strange state. In an instant, a ray of light flashed in his left eye. Lin Feng was shocked. Everywhere he looked, he felt incomparably clear. The scene in the distance seemed to be right in front of him. It was extremely detailed. In an instant, Lin Feng held his breath. He saw a bald man's hands spitting out flames. He was calcining a sword. It was extremely precise. However, this time was completely different from the previous ones. The movement of the hands, the spitting of the flames, every angle, every subtle change in the movements were all imprinted in his mind. The temperature, intensity, direction, position of the flames, including the movements of the hands, the degree of strength used, and the shaping of the blade of the sword. Every step seemed to be branded and imprinted in his mind. He felt as if he had become the bald man and become one. What a strange feeling. What was going on? Lin Feng was slightly shocked. He felt that it was incredible. Looking at the bald man's movements, he felt as if he was also refining in his mind. Moreover, his movements were exactly the same as the bald man's. Every step, every subtle change, there was not a trace of deviation. It was as if he was doing the movements in front of a mirror. When the bald man finished his movements, he finished refining just before the 10 seconds were up. Bang! His head exploded. Lin Feng instantly woke up. He clenched his hands. His heart was incomparably clear. It was as if he was there just now. Starry sky pupils. Was that starry sky pupils just now? Lin Feng was extremely shocked. He could not believe it. He did not expect his starry sky pupils to have such an effect. It was extremely incredible, and it seemed that this was just the tip of the iceberg. While he was surprised, his number plate flashed. In front of him, a middle-aged man left with a face full of dust and dismay. Lin Feng looked in front of him and saw that the examiner was looking at him. There was no one in front of him. It was obviously his turn. Looking at all kinds of metals and steel in front of him, Lin Feng frowned slightly. He hesitated. Should I learn from that young man? Or... Lin Feng pursed his lips. Every kind of metal and steel had different melting points, toughness, and materials. The hedgehog-headed young man's refining skills were obviously much better than the bald man's. However, he had clearly seen the bald man's refinement earlier, because the power of the starry sky pupils was revealed. This is it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He immediately made up his mind. He picked up a piece of thick iron that was the same size as the bald man's and closed his eyes. He believed in the starry sky pupils. In an instant, his left eye shone brightly. The scene just now instantly appeared in his mind. In an instant, Lin Feng entered a strange state. Flames spewed out from his hands. He did not multitask, nor did he burn the flames crazily. Instead, he controlled the flames to the same intensity as the bald man's. With Lin Feng's strength, controlling the flames was extremely easy. Although the intensity of the flames was constantly changing when the bald man was refining, the difficulty level was much higher than the second round. But this time, Lin Feng could perfectly control it. The starry sky pupils controlled everything. It was like drawing a picture. The starry sky pupils perfectly imitated the structure of the picture, and he only needed to copy it stroke by stroke. As long as he was strong enough, he could imitate it. The flames lit up. Lin Feng's left eye flashed. His gaze was not focused on the sword's embryo. Instead, it was focused on a strange state. Time passed slowly. 10 seconds passed in the blink of an eye. At the last moment of the bells ringing, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The flames instantly disappeared. The sword was completed. Even the time taken to complete was exactly the same. Staring blankly at the embryo of the sword in front of him, Lin Feng was a little dumbfounded. He did not expect that he would really be able to refine a sword exactly the same as the bald man's. The entire process of the bald man's refining was exactly the same. Perfect imitation. Fourth update. Chapter 740. Inside the Lin clan. This. Lin Zhong was a little stunned. He looked at his master and saw his master frown. His master closed his eyes in disappointment. Lin Zhong immediately looked at the score displayed on the screen. 61 points. Just passed. What a mess. Ridiculous. After saying these words, Lin Yin stood up. His eyes were gloomy as he shook his head and left. His appearance and expression were obviously disappointed to the extreme. Sigh. Lin Zhong sighed softly. As an artificer, he knew very well why his master was angry just now. A weapon refiner with a perfect fire affinity actually had such a horrible basic technique of weapon refinement. It was like asking an extremely beautiful woman to mine for ores. It was such a waste of God's gift. His master was not insulting him. In fact, he was sighing and regretting. If he really wanted to insult him, wouldn't those warriors who failed be scolded even more? 61 points. Lin Zhong's expression changed slightly. As if thinking of something, Lin Zhong's eyes suddenly brightened. His hands moved quickly, and the screen quickly changed to the scene of the bald man's refinement. If you remember correctly, the person who passed the test just now also got 61 points. In an instant, Lin Zhong's expression changed. Dumbfounded, he stared at the scene in front of him in shock. No, it can't be. How can it be exactly the same? Lin Zhong's eyes widened as he stared at the scene of the bald man's refinement. He closed his eyes, and the scene of Lin Feng's refinement replayed in his mind. He fell into deep thought. Suddenly, Lin Zhong opened his eyes, and his hands began to move skillfully, making crackling sounds. The screen in front of him instantly split into two. One was the bald man, and the other was Lin Feng. Pa! Lin Zhong pressed the button. His eyes were burning. 10 seconds later, exactly the same. The intensity of the flame, the temperature, the angle. How can it be like this? Even the mistakes, the extra movements, and the small problems are exactly the same. It was unbelievable. Lin Zhong frowned. He held his chin in his hand and was puzzled. Lin Zhong, had followed his master in artificing for so long that Lin Zhong, was quite famous in Shirluo Commandery, but he had never seen such a bizarre thing. Even if it was a top-notch refiner, it was hard to guarantee that the entire process of refining the same sword embryo would be exactly the same. After all, humans are not machines. Furthermore, they were two completely different armament masters. Wait. Lin Zhong's eyes flickered. His hands moved skillfully as he watched it over and over again. No, their flames are different. It's completely different. This little guy called Lin Feng is deliberately suppressing the power of his flames. Ugh, Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully, then muttered to himself, for the time being, let's not disturb Master. Let's save this video first. In any case, this Lin Feng is already qualified. After he becomes an apprentice refiner, we can slowly watch it. A total of 239 points, ranked in the middle of this batch of apprentice refiners. Help him mention it. In the Lin clan, Lin Zhong was quite famous, and his position in the clan was very high. Whether it was his rank or strength, Lin Zhong was famous. This could be seen from the fact that he was in charge of such important matters as the apprentice refiner. However, Lin Feng obviously did not know that he had attracted attention. At this moment, he was very happy. Lin Feng sent a short message that he had passed to Wan Macho with a smile. He had taken the first step. Suddenly, beep, 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 beep. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he opened the star crystal watch. There was only one person who knew his number. Wow, Brother Lin, you really passed the test? Wan Macho sounded very surprised. Yes, I'm in luck. Aren't you busy, Brother Wan? Lin Feng smiled. He was afraid that he would disturb Wan Macho, so he only sent a short message to him. Not bad. I just took a walk. Wan Macho smiled valiantly. Seeing that Brother Lin is working so hard, I can't waste any more time. Well, should I go to the Equatorial Palace Alliance? The eagle cries in the sky, or Juan Macho's voice came from the other end of the star crystal watch. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. There were many big and small forces in Shirluo County. He had heard Juan Macho mention them just now. However, he didn't need to bother to choose. Right now, he already had a place. In a spacious hall. Hua! Stepping into the room, Lin Feng looked around curiously. There were not many people here. It was a drop in the bucket compared to the terrifying sea of people outside. However, those who could stay here were all elites. It seems that they all passed the test like I did. There are so many Star Lords. Lin Feng was secretly shocked. There were too many warriors here with stronger auras than him. There were at least 1,000 of them. Juan Macho was right. In the land of the 9 provinces, the warriors of a county are already quite impressive. These are only weapon refiner apprentices. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he nodded. Fortunately, he hid his identity and entered the Lin clan carefully. Otherwise, if his father really had some grudges with the clan, he would have nowhere to run if his identity was exposed. This was not Yanling Prefecture. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly changed. He felt an extremely strange aura, and a chill ran down his spine. Turning his head, Lin Feng immediately saw a man sitting cross-legged in the distance with his eyes closed. He was surrounded by faint flames. The muscles all over his body seemed to be bursting. He was abnormally strong, and his fire aura was far stronger than his. Looking at him, Lin Feng's heart trembled slightly. Is this a star sector level expert? What a terrifying aura! Lin Feng was alarmed, and his eyes flashed. If he guessed correctly, this man should be the only star sector level existence here. Southern Crown Constellation, Wuyong. There were many experts. There were many Star Lords in the land of the 9 provinces. The cultivation conditions are different, and so is the environment. A place nurtures a place. It's relatively easy to become a Star Lord here. Lin Feng sighed. It was just like how it wasn't easy to become a beginner on the Tianwu continent. In Yanling County, the Star Lord level was a shackle and a thick barrier. However, in the 9 provinces, not to mention the dense spiritual energy, the cultivation conditions here were much different. It was indeed not easy to reach the Star Lord level through normal cultivation, but in the land of the 9 provinces, as long as you had money, you could buy star stones, star crystals, engraved arrays, and so on. Was it difficult to reach the Star Lord level? When I was in the Tianwu continent, my talent was mediocre, but Duo was still confident that he could promote me to the saint level. It's the same principle. Lin Feng smiled and didn't care. Although he was weak now, he had walked up step by step with a firm and steady footing. The road he had taken would never be in vain. I heard from Juan Macho that reaching the Star Lord level by relying on external objects is already the limit. If you want to reach the star sector level, you must comprehend star techniques and improve your cultivation. Lin Feng nodded slowly. A good cultivation environment can certainly increase the probability, and good cultivation conditions can also make it twice the result with half the effort, but in the end, it still depends on talent. For example, even if he had the best cultivation conditions, his god of war aptitude still couldn't compare to that of a celestial spirit master. It was no wonder that the deputy was so popular. When one's strength reached the limit and couldn't improve, they had to find a shortcut. Soon, more and more people came to the hall. After a while, there were 10,000 people. Quiet. A deep voice suddenly sounded. The whole hall suddenly quieted down, and a middle-aged man in brocade clothes slowly stepped in. He had a strong back and a strong aura, which made the eyes of the warriors below all shine. Lin Zhong, an Earth-level refiner. He was famous in Shirluo County. Star sector level, and his aura is far better than that of Wu Yong. Lin Feng's eyes were burning as he looked up at the middle-aged man. However, he suddenly felt a sharp gaze that seemed to penetrate him. Cold sweat immediately ran down his back. It was the middle-aged man who also glanced at him. What? Lin Feng's heart trembled. Although it was just a glance, he was completely sure that there was a deeper meaning behind it. Does he know me? This thought appeared in his mind, but Lin Feng immediately rejected it. Impossible. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Lin Feng thought to himself. There is no reason for his identity to be exposed. Welcome to the Lin clan and officially become apprentices of refiners. Lin Zhong's voice was loud and clear, and his expression was calm as he said slowly, I will give you 10 days to deal with all the chores. After 10 days, you will undergo closed-door training for a year. Everyone's eyes were bright, and there was no objection. A year was very short for a Star Sea level warrior, let alone a Star Lord level warrior. Lin Feng nodded casually. However, 10 days was not a bad time to familiarize himself with this place. The training will be divided into 100 groups led by 100 instructors. Lin Zhong said calmly and pointed at the light screen behind him. Those ranked 1 to 100 will be the first group. Those ranked 100 and 1 to 200 will be the second group. Your accommodations will be arranged by the instructors of each group. Then, the light screen behind him suddenly lit up. Names and numbers were arranged neatly according to their scores. 1. Lu Yikai, 284 points. 2. Jing Yu, 283 points. 3. Wu Yong, 280 points. Wow! The entire hall suddenly exploded. Everyone looked at their number plates, looked at their scores, and looked for their ranking. They were all apprentices of refiners, but their status was different. The higher the group, the better the instructor, and the better the training. They could even receive the personal guidance of the legendary Master Lin Yan. Countless warriors had come because of this. I'm 239 points. Oh, I'm so far behind first place? Lin Feng looked at his number plate, which clearly showed his score. Lin Feng smiled calmly. He didn't care. After all, he didn't come here to learn how to refine. It didn't matter which group he was in, as long as he could sneak into the Lin clan. His ulterior motive wasn't the wine. First update. Chapter 741. 239 points. Lin Feng softly read. His gaze swept across the screen, and he quickly found the list with 230 to 240 points. His ranking had already fallen to 4,000, and he was only in the middle of the 10,000 blacksmith apprentices. However, Lin Feng was already satisfied with this result. It was already commendable that he was able to pass the examination with the blacksmithing skills he secretly learned at the last minute. Why isn't my name there? Looking at the screen in surprise, Lin Feng continuously scanned the list with 238 to 240 points. He stared at it again and again, but where was the name Lin Feng? Strange. Lin Feng was secretly puzzled. Suddenly, F***CK. Who is that Lin Feng that's ranked 100th? A flustered and exasperated voice suddenly rang out. A young man with a crew cut pointed at the screen with a ferocious expression. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Everyone who heard the voice looked over, and in a split second, there was a lot of discussion. Lin Feng was startled. When he suddenly heard his name, his gaze immediately glanced at the front of the screen, and his eyes suddenly brightened. In the 100th place, he actually found his name. It can't be. Lin Feng was a little confused. 99. Wuya, 272 points. 100. Lin Feng, 239 points. 101. Jia Fei, 271 points. Looking at the names and rankings on the screen, Lin Feng didn't know what expression to show. Confusion? Joy? There should be a mistake, right? Lin Feng secretly said. In the middle of a group of names with 270 points, his 239 points was quite eye-catching. It was as if an adult had mixed in with a group of children, completely out of place. It was no wonder that everyone around him was talking about him, and his name was constantly being mentioned. Inexplicably, he became very high-profile. Instructor, is there a mistake in the ranking? The crew-cut young man impatiently asked. Lin Feng smiled in a carefree manner. Just as he had this thought, Jia Fei, who was ranked 101st, was already anxious and impatient to ask about it. Although there was only a difference of one position between the 100th and 101st place, it was the difference between the first group and the second group. The difference was huge. How could he not be anxious? Do you think an Earth-rank blacksmith would make a mistake in the ranking? The instructor's voice was neither servile nor overbearing, very calm. This sentence made the crew-cut young man's face instantly deflate. Refining was extremely complicated. Every step was extremely meticulous. Blacksmiths were most particular about attentiveness. How could they make such a simple ranking wrong? Boom! The instructor's words, more than 1,000 words. Without a doubt, Lin Feng's position was confirmed. He was exactly at the 100th place. There was no objection. Hey, do you know who that Lin Feng is? I don't know, but I'm sure that this Lin Feng must have some background. Maybe he's the son of some big family. I guess so too. Impressive. Even the Lin clan has to give him face. This Lin Feng must have a big background. Remember not to offend him. Everyone spoke one after another, and in an instant, the news spread throughout the hall. Even the first and second place, Lu Yikai and Jing Yuyu, were not as famous as Lin Feng's name. However, the person involved had a bitter face and sighed softly. There were only disadvantages. With such a big reputation, it's very inconvenient to do things. Lin Feng sighed inwardly. When the time came, all eyes would be on him. It was indeed a troublesome matter. If he had really come to learn how to refine weapons, this would be a happy occasion. But his purpose was to investigate his background and find his uncle Lin Jing. He wanted to know what happened to his father that year. Now that everyone was paying attention to him, he obviously stood at the peak of the storm. How could he investigate and find him? Most importantly, why did they raise my ranking by so much? Did they recognize something? With doubts in his heart, Lin Feng was also afraid. But now, there was nothing he could do. Let's walk and see. It's better to stay still. Lin Feng nodded, already having a plan in his heart. For now, he could only take one step at a time and see how things would develop. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. The instructor of the first group, Lin Lingma. She was tall like an ice rose, extremely cold and elegant. A third-grade weapon refiner. She was the disciple of the Earth-rank weapon refiner Lin Zhong, and also the one with the highest grade among the 100 instructors. At this moment, she was leading a group of 100 apprentices to her residence. Unlike other instructors who would introduce themselves from time to time, Lin Lingma was, like her name, extremely cold. She was stingy with her words. However, the 100 armament apprentices below were chatting enthusiastically. After all, in the future, they would live together and receive training. It was naturally not a bad thing to have more friends. Moreover, it was very normal for weapon refiners to exchange their experiences. There was no need to be stingy. But there were also topics to talk about. Hey, hello, let's get to know each other. A young man in luxurious clothes took 2 steps back and said softly, "My name is Li Hao. Just call me a Hao." Then he winked at Lin Feng. This Li Hao was obviously very familiar with everyone and didn't mind strangers at all. "Hello, Lin Feng." Smiling, Lin Feng politely replied. The young man in front of him was similar in age to him and was also a Star Lord. "Lin Feng." Li Hao's expression changed instantly as he exclaimed. His voice was so loud that everyone in the group heard him. Everyone turned to look at Lin Feng and focused their attention on him. The fiery gazes were filled with curiosity and doubt. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Suddenly, he felt a sharp light coming from the front of the group. Even the teacher, Lin Lingma, was looking at him with a cold expression, as if she was interested. He was famous again. "Yes, it's me," Lin Feng replied helplessly. There were only 100 people in a group. Anyway, people would find out sooner or later. It didn't matter. As if sensing something wrong, Li Hao hurriedly covered his mouth. Sorry. I was too surprised. I didn't expect the legendary Lin Feng to be you." "Legendary?" Lin Feng nodded helplessly. "Hey, just like what they said, you're a young master." Li Hao sized up Lin Feng with sparkling eyes. Suddenly, he frowned. "But, Lin Feng, you don't look like a disciple of a famous family." Clapping his hands, Li Hao suddenly understood. He whispered, "I know. Brother Lin Feng, you did it on purpose, didn't you?" Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. No, I'm not from a famous family. I'm from the Yinling Prefecture. Ah, a wildland warrior. Li Hao couldn't believe it. A wildland warrior? Lin Feng was curious. Hey, Lin Feng, you must be new here. Li Hao blinked and made a hushed gesture. Don't tell others that you're from the wildland. The humans of the 9 provinces don't think highly of those wildland warriors. However, I've heard of the Mystic Prefecture and the Myriad Wheels Prefecture. As for the Yinling Prefecture, oh, this is the first time I've heard of it. I see. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. The so-called wildland should be referring to the prefectures outside the 9 provinces. In the 9 provinces of the southern region, there were tens of thousands of prefectures around each of them. The Vermilion Bird Prefecture was no exception. Maybe the Yinling Prefecture is a bit far from here, Lin Feng said with a faint smile. Yes, I think so too. Li Hao nodded thoughtfully. He clicked his tongue and said, however, there aren't many young wildland warriors. The cultivation conditions there are far inferior to the 9 provinces. I think Lin Feng's aptitude must be quite good. That's right. Lin Feng smiled and asked curiously, but why do the humans of the 9 provinces look down on wildland warriors? TSK, they like to pretend, Li Hao said disdainfully. They all think they're better than others. What about you? Lin Feng laughed. Li Hao patted his chest and said with his head held high, I'm a man. Why would I stoop to the level of those mediocre people? Is that so? Lin Feng chuckled. They chatted along the way, but it wasn't boring. Li Hao had a straightforward personality and was not pretentious. Lin Feng also asked him from time to time to familiarize himself with Shirluo Prefecture. After all, compared to Wan Macho, Li Hao was born and raised in Shirluo Prefecture. He knew a lot of things in detail. Moreover, from the way he talked and dressed, it was obvious that his family background wasn't bad. Soon, we're here, Lin Lingma said. Everyone immediately stopped. Lin Feng looked over and saw a valley. All kinds of mushroom-like buildings stood around the valley, forming a circle. There were a total of 100 of them. Each mushroom flickered with a faint light, and there seemed to be a strange energy flickering in the surroundings. It was divided into 2 colors, gold and silver. They intertwined and looked extremely beautiful. These mushrooms in the outermost area were the smallest existences in the valley. There were also many buildings in the inner layer, some in the shape of a cone, some in the shape of an oval, and some in the shape of a rectangular cube. In the center of the valley, there was a small valley that occupied half the area. It was semicircular and looked like a creeping giant beast. It was very domineering. Pick a place to stay. 10 days later, gather at the entrance of the valley at 7 o'clock. The training will officially begin. After saying that, Lin Lingma turned and left. Her cold and elegant figure gave people a cold feeling, and she was very arrogant. Let's go, brother Lin Feng, Li Hao said with a smile. Okay. Lin Feng nodded. Engrave array? Lin Feng was surprised. Yes, the gold color is the star gathering engraved array. Li Hao pointed at the mushroom that flickered with a faint light and said with a smile, cultivating in the star gathering engraved array can double the sensitivity of the constellation. The silver color is the time engraved array, and the time ratio is 1:10. You can activate it with star energy, but you can only activate one type of engraved array at the same time. Li Hao patted the door of the mushroom and said with a smile, you can stay here. It's convenient to be neighbors. Okay. Lin Feng nodded. It didn't matter. Lin Feng curiously sized up the mushroom in front of him. Then, he pushed the door open and entered. The land of the 9 provinces was indeed completely different from the Yinling estate. He was only an apprentice artificer, but the cultivation conditions were already so amazing. It was true that different places had their own people. Lin Feng smiled. Second update, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.